anyway. So
the game's like the handshake's taken, and we've been told that Kunz is an E4 player. I have it on good authority, Danny, that he's not really prepared because he just wanted to relax, concentrate on playing, and I don't think that's disrespecting his opponent. He's going to go with the Perk or Peerts. What do you say, Danny, about the pronunciation to start off with?
I mean, I've always the Perk, to be honest, but
yeah, so have I.
I'm
not too worried. I think, and well, he's gone with one. He's gone with. I guess, is there a difference between playing one G6 and one D6, Danny? I mean, can that lead to different positions rather than? I mean, I appreciate there could be some crossover, but I think he's gone one G6, not one D6.
To Simon, but I can't remember him ever having any great games in his opening. I mean, is it? You know, I can remember him like he's a very good French player. Seems to have some good games to Sicilian, but is it really him to be playing the Perk? I don't know. I just get that.
I think the idea is that, you know, he's kind of like, I don't know. You've made some comments to me about this. You know, his opponent has known about this pairing for, you know, 12 hours or whatever, 8 hours at least. And I think the idea is just, you know, not to disrespect him, but to not, you know, the guy's probably spent a couple of hours practicing some French, practicing some Sicilian, and I just don't think he, you know, it's kind of, is it not a bit disheartening? I know it's not the best opening reputation, 1G6, but it's not a little bit disheartening that you've prepared for a couple of hours and, you know, got maybe a couple of tricks lined up in the French or the Sicilian, and Simon just goes 1G6. It's a little bit like...
Given that he played his opening earlier in the tournament, I don't think it would come as a surprise to this guy.
Did he?
If he doesn't...
Oh, he did actually. Of course, he played hard. I've been covering his games, Danny.
It's been a long tournament, mate. You probably need a break.
I do need a break. He played it against the the rapidly improving, shall we say? Let's not say any more than that. The Patrick Shishlak, I believe his name is, and he's played some fantastic games.
Am I allowed to say? I want to say something about that opponent because.
Yeah, of course you're allowed to say it, Danny, on your head be it. But yeah, you're allowed to. Obviously, we're here to hear your opinion. But
well, Simon played the 2200s in round 3, who had previously beaten Wadsworth and
Thea,
who are two quite highly rated players, like 24, 40. I think Wadsworth is 24-30. He has been as high as 24-90, and Fier is a Brazilian grandmaster who's been as high as 26-40, I think. He's currently residing about maybe high 2500s. I'm not sure.
I think it's still over 2600.
I know he won't have gone back. I know he went below 2600, but he's obviously a very good player, and he beat them both. And I was chatting to somebody on Facebook, and they said their son played him. His son's about 900 rating. And this was about a year ago, and he beat this same kid that Simon drew with, like 2-0 in a rapid play tournament. And he's like, and you go back 3 years ago, he was literally about 1300 rated. So it's either the biggest improvement in the world, or who knows. But yeah, it does show now that some of these kids are just improving incredibly quickly, and the rating system is not reflecting that. The whole rating system is broken. We need to have a reset of ratings, I think. And say, look, I would just give every junior player another 200 points on their rating.
And how many points would you take off me, Danny?
I would add points to your rating. I'd say just purely based on your talent level, the fact that you're a very lazy person, and well, you're not very lazy. I mean, you actually do know a lot of theory, even though you kind of come across as this kind of devil-may-care character. You probably know more openings than I do these days,
Perhaps, but then again, it's openings only take us so far in the game of chess, don't they? And of course, we need to actually play all-rounded. We need to know our strategies, our end games, our tactics, and I've still got a long way to go in some of those departments. Let's what do you don't think this opening's got a particularly good reputation as such, or you don't think it's appropriate, necessarily the best way that Simon could play the position?
Yeah, I just feel like it's not really him, all this Perk stuff. But I could be wrong, obviously. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know Simon's chess as well as I used to. So it's like, I haven't seen that many of his games recently, and also he doesn't play that much anyway. But yeah, I mean, he's a creative player, but it just, yeah. I mean, I was reading this article earlier, actually. Sorry to go off the beaten track, but I was reading this article earlier.
No, not at all. We could get to the game. We've got plenty of time. We can take the game from the beginning in a minute, and we'll hear your thoughts. So please carry on.
in the Sunday Times there was an article about whether computers, how chess is facing this existential crisis due to artificial intelligence and, specifically chess computers in general. And, it was talking about the fact that Magnus Carlsen had stopped playing in the World Championships due to the fact that he would have to be spending many, weeks and months preparing games in a very detailed way with computer engines, which he didn't find appealing whatsoever. So I wondered what you thought about that, whether or not, computers now are so strong. Is it a case of as chess players, we just become engine imitators? We're just trying to...
Well, I think, as you know, I think that, it's certainly made such a massive impact on opening preparation. And nowadays, you've found this yourself, Danny. If people know the pairing, some time in advance, it really gives them the opportunity, with all the database out there and the computer help. Almost the game is kind of, to a degree, kind of starting, certainly at the highest level, it's starting from move, I don't know, sometimes 15, 18, 20, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also...
Maybe more,
kind of starting in a hotel room, because if you're playing in a typical tournament, what preparation you do beforehand is very relevant,
I was thinking about your point about Magnus. I sort of casually worked out, I think he's played 5 World Championship matches now, one when he won it, and maybe 4 successful defences, if I'm not mistaken. I possibly could be, but I sort of worked out in that's over a 10-year period. So if you work out that just to prepare for those matches probably takes about 3 months of time, that's kind of like spent at least sort of a year and a half in his last 10 years minimum, just preparing for World Championship matches. And that's kind of like quite a big investment of time, isn't it? When it comes down to 8 games, 10 games, 12 games, kind of like to dedicate, over a year, comfortably over a year of your life in the last 10 years. So like possibly, like he's up to 15, 20% of his time. It's been spent preparing for World Championship matches for exactly. 650 games of chess, basically.
I mean, it's as you grow older as well, you become... I mean, when Magnus was younger, he was obviously very dedicated to chess. When he was a kid, he was playing chess all the time. But as you grow older, you become aware that there's other things in life. I know Magnus currently is playing in the Norwegian poker championships, which apparently isn't even taking place in Norway because they ban professional poker tournaments in that country or something.
Well, I think also like I think there was this whole thing about why Magnus tried to start up this sort of like internet chess club, because they wanted to get all the votes in the Norwegian Chess Federation in order so that they could like have sponsorship, because I think that there's the government monopoly on gambling in Norway, I think, if I'm correct. So his association with, I think it's Unibet,
yes,
is a little bit controversial in the sense that he's a big figure in Norway, and obviously promoting something which I guess Norwegian citizens should not be using necessarily online is probably a little bit controversial. I mean, I'm a sort of free marketeer to a degree. I mean, I know that there's hazards with gambling and people should be very aware of those, but in principle, I think caveat emptor, and people should be, allowed to choose. They shouldn't, they should be allowed to choose what they do with their time and money to a degree, with some parameters, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting. Somebody made a comment in chat. Simon was probably more exhausted than his younger opponent, who was, by the way, 16 years of age, very talented player, obviously. To be 22-60.
She played very well, did she?
And went into a line which he would normally never go for. Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't totally agree with that. Firstly, why would he be exhausted? It's only round... what round was it? Round
6. Well, don't forget, he did play this crazy topsy-turvy like game in the morning where it's like over 5 hours long.
Well, it comes back to my point I'm making about you shouldn't really play 2 games a day. It's not ideal. But secondly, I would say, I mean, that game, he didn't really play that badly. I mean, you look at the game. I mean, Nick Pertz made a good point. At some point when he played Rook C3 in the endgame, it was slight ego taken over, which I've often fallen prey to, that you miss a move, and because you're slightly annoyed, you're slightly rattled, you respond quite quickly. And
it turned out his response was the losing move, basically. Even if his position was under a bit of pressure, having missed this Rook C3 response, You can look this game up online, obviously, people.
Yeah, yeah.
He just responded immediately with what was a losing move.
Right.
He could have thought for it, you know, he wasn't under time pressure at that moment. He could have thought for like 5-10 minutes, sucked it up, you know, been a bit humble about missing this move, which he almost certainly just missed it.
But the only criticism I made in playing that game was, I think there was someone where he went bishop h5 and he had a bishop on g6.
That's correct.
And I think he slightly played inconsistent there because he obviously didn't exchange bishops. So I think when you start playing inconsistently, it never ends well.
I agree with you, Danny, because like it's like the whole game, he was rightly or wrongly, whatever the objective valuation, he was avoiding exchanging queens. And fun enough, the first moment when he decided that a queen exchange was appropriate is he went wrong 2 moves later.
Because I think at some point you have to evaluate. You have to think, look, you know, is it so bad to make a draw here? You know, okay, white against 2060. But this is a problem now that, you know, the ratings aren't the same as what they used to be. I mean, 20 years ago, you'd have played that same opponent, or the same rating, I should say, and he would have won that game because people didn't play as well. Now, you know, it's weird because you get outplayed by players at that rate in a similar kind of game. You know, so it's like it's a different kind of ball game that we're dealing with. But I do think that today's opponent, you know, let's forget about the past. You know, today, focus on today. Today's opponent seems unbeatable, but he's played aggressively in the open. He's gone H.
Okay, well, of course, I was going to say, chat's already picked this up. By the way, as no, but people agreeing with you about this, well, agree with generally with us about this queen exchange. But let's move on. Let's focus on today's game. Let's go back to the beginning, so we can bang out the key move on the board. And I don't think Simon's rattled, but you know, it's kind of like to have a taste of your own medicine. E4, G6, white gets the centre, black will obviously develop a bit more slowly, develop the bishop and attack the centre a bit more slowly, knight C3, D6, bishop E3, A6, queen D2. The reason I'm rushing through, black plays B5, a sort of Tiger's Modern, I think it's kind of called, Danny. I think there is a course on this, by the way, on GingerGM. Tiger Hillup Person who's done a course on this setup where you don't put the knight out to F6 early. And Simon got hit with the move, pawn to H4. Harry's coming at him. How's he going to feel about that, Danny?
Well, I mean, I play whenever I'm faced with this kind of modern, this kind of setup, similar setup. I generally go for H4, but I do it even earlier without the queen on D2. Simon's just got knight F6, which I think is a good move. And I think one of the points is maybe that white can't go bishop H6 because maybe E4 is hanging.
Oh, by the way, Danny, you're quite comfortable. I could have shared my screen with you, but it seems to me that we seems to be it's fine at the moment. Just let me know if there is a bit of a lag at any point, but it seems okay.
Yeah, I mean, bishop H6, you can trade and go B4 and then win E4. And I mean, I don't know if white would get enough compensation. So unless this guy's prepared this.
So after B4, is the knight has to go somewhere? I don't know where it could go. Maybe just say E2 or something, but then knight takes E4. You're saying?
Yeah, I mean, you could win the pawn back with Queen G7, Queen H7, but yeah, I mean that's true. Rook would have to go to F8 and then Queen H7. But that seems to be reasonably comfortable for black. But the problem, with these kind of positions, I mean, from both sides, is where's the king go? I mean, the king, obviously the black king can't castle now on the king side. So long term is thinking about going to the queen side. But there's a lot of pieces in the way to get that done, to get Brexit done, you know.
Also, they're never far off a political statement, Danny. But also with the pawn on B4, the queen side looking a little bit airy. I mean, isn't it? I mean, I'm not saying it's not. There's plenty of protection with pieces around there, but it still looks a little bit airy, doesn't it?
Ideally,
when like a move like A3, for example.
Yeah, A3 would be.
Readily open it up.
I'm just pouring out my thermos flask. I'm very old-fashioned, you know. I started using this thermos flask to boost my addiction to caffeine. By the way, if anyone wants to nominate a song for me to sing, I've thought of a good thing. It's like we'll get a few once we get a few more viewers, we'll ask them to nominate songs. It has to be a song that I've heard of, and I'll try and sing.
Well, how would they know if that was the case then, Danny? I mean, that doesn't really. They have to.
Well,
are you going to put yourself like?
But how can I sing it's a song I don't know? I can't.
Of course, but what I'm saying is if they're asked to nominate songs, they don't know what your playlist
Well, they can
is.
try and nominate them.
Oh, I see.
But I'll see if I'll accept.
I mean, I'm a big fan of your Maria rendition. We don't need to break into that just yet. But also, I was quite big.
It's a bit early. Yeah.
But it is a bit early as well. You need a bit bigger stage, don't you? You know. And also, I'm quite a big fan of a bit of Roy Orbison, and I know that you.
Yeah, I'm going to do some Roy Orbison later.
You belt out when there's a lull in proceedings. You belt out a little bit of what is Only the Lonely or something like that. Is that what you do?
That's a classic. It's not one of my favourite Roy Orbison songs, but it's a classic.
Do you know my favourite Roy Orbison song?
Let me guess.
Oh, please do. I don't think you'll get it. I'm being serious, by the way.
I think you're probably right. I'm going to go with Running Scared.
That's correct, by the way.
Is it? No.
Yeah, it is.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not. I'm absolutely serious.
I'm good, aren't I?
He's quite good, Danny. I had no idea that you'd. In James is brilliant as well, by the way. But my absolute favourite. There was a great YouTube video of him where I think Bruce Springsteen and it's playing in the background a young Bruce Springsteen. It's like a black and white.
Right.
Black and White did a concert, and it's people can look it up. Running Scared, absolutely. I think there was also Elvis Costello was there as well. I believe it was like but Running Scared, yeah.
Just a good year. What a good year for the Roses. That was one of his.
One of whose? What, Elvis Costello's?
Yeah.
I'm not so familiar with Elvis Costello, by the way.
That was one of the first records that I was familiar with when I was a kid. Was What a Good Year for the Roses. But yeah, I mean, I think Roy Orbison, he was in the Travelling Wilburys.
I know quite a bit of the Travelling Wilburys, by the way.
Yeah, that was with Tom Petty and
Jeff Lynne.
I think
Bob Geldof.
No, Bob Geldof wasn't in it.
Was he not? Of course he was.
No, George Harrison.
Maybe. Bob Geldof was in there. No, not Bob Geldof. Sorry, I meant Bob Dylan. Sorry, ridiculously sorry.
Yeah, Bob Dylan.
No, I just misspoke there. Thank you very much to Seth Lichtenton. I did mean Bob Dylan, by the way. I just misspoke, Danny. I apologise. Of course, I didn't mean Bob Geldof. What am I talking about? That was ridiculous. Can we just edit that? Can we just edit that misspeaking? Just misspeaking. I know it's not Bob Geldof. Anyway. By the way, Danny, just go back to the position, just to completely, it's a smooth segue to back to the position because of my slip of the tongue there with my nonsense. White has not indulged in exactly what you're saying, and has just played the eminently sensible pawn to f3.
By the way, can I just make the point that after h4, I remember at a blitz game against Nakamura, who obviously plays a lot of these moderns. And what stood out to me is he in that game he just allowed the move h5, and I ended up getting absolutely slaughtered. I don't know if
you were white, obviously, just to confirm.
I was white, yeah. And he just went like knight d7, bishop d. Well, I can't actually remember what he did, but I just remember he allowed h5, and then after h5, I mean the point is that if white takes on g6, he hasn't really disrupted the pawn structure.
So can I just put them? So you're saying, for example, if h5 were possible, I appreciate there might be an issue here with the knight taking it, but let's just say, for example, black played knight d7.
To
show your idea.
I'm saying he didn't go knight f6. I think he just went like knight d7.
Oh, okay. So knight d7. No, literally. So genuinely, so we don't need to sort of fabricate actual moves as such, and just allowed h5. Say bishop b7, yeah. Bishop
b7 or something, and then eventually I went h6, which turned out to it's okay, but obviously after say bishop, maybe even went back to f8. I can't remember. I think he went bishop f6, and then if f4 there's e6, so you can drop the bishop back to e7. And I remember just getting slaughtered because my king side attacked ground to a halt, and somehow he did something nasty to me on the queen side when I castled queen side,
Yeah, so maybe he's got ideas. I mean, if it's a similar position, I'm sure the principle is correct, like c5 and b4 or moves such as this.
Yeah,
and you can see that with the king not committed to the king side, it's quite hard for white to find a break open. And even if they do break it open, what are they breaking open effectively?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, to me, ever since that game, I've always thought the best way for black to respond to h4 is just to ignore it, right? So don't go h6, which is, if you could play moves like h6 or h5, you're essentially saying, look, that was a good move, right? But if you, because after, for example, H6, there might be a problem with H5 and then F4 later.
Yeah. So let's just put that on the board because I noticed in the live position. We'll get to that in a minute. Simon has decided to stop this pawn eventually. In its tracks. And I know that engines, and you would have talked a lot about engines. They often don't like this. They kind of stop the H pawn sooner or later. Normally sooner rather than later. Let's just look at that. What you're saying here. So. Consider if you want to stop this H pawn in its tracks, and I appreciate what you've just said, Danny. Yeah. You may actually want to potentially ignore it. That might be certainly one of the ways to deal with it. The two ways to stop it are playing H5 immediately. I'm just going back to when White played H4, and you said, of course, you're kind of acknowledging that this pawn push on H4 is a good idea.
Yeah.
Of course, you're weakening squares such as G5, which you'll never really retain control of because F6 would be ridiculous in terms of such a weakening move. So you're certainly giving White the G5 square, and you're talking about the other concept, which is to play H6, and the idea behind that, as I know you will know, Danny, is to meet H5 with G5. Yeah. Therefore, once again, effectively allowing it one square further but stopping it. But as Danny so beautifully pointed out, you've got to be really. This actually looks pretty, as a concept, really bad way to deal with it for me as Black.
Well, it's true, but I must admit, as maybe of a lazy kind of response, I often respond to the move H4 with H6. But then again, there's also the problem that later on, if you try and castle kingside, that pawn will be on pre's anyway. So how do you castle kingside? If White doesn't bother to go for F4, doesn't bother to go H5, and just calmly develops. You go.
So, for example, you're saying White's not committed to playing H5, and if you ever want to castle kingside, you've got to figure it out because you can't play knight F6 in castles because the pawn on H6 is always being spied by the bishop on E3 and the queen from D2.
And if you go H5, there's knight F3 to G5 is often annoying for Black because they're...
Well, let's just jump into the position because after F3, I don't know whether... Why do you think that Simon... By the way, Danny, why do you think that Simon waited to have the moves knight F6, F3 and then decided it was... his choice was to play H5. Why do you think he didn't play H5 straight away? Is that because...
I think because he... After knight f6, f3, he now believes that bishop h6 is a genuine threat. Because
I see what you're saying. Because that's a very good point, Danny. Because you were saying earlier, of course, that if the White, whether this is possible or not, and you said there was some upsides, some downsides. Certainly, one of the ways that Black can respond to this is by targeting that e4 pawn, because this knight gets kicked away, and Black has the option, certainly, of taking that one of the important central pawns. And so after the move, so thank you for explaining that. After the move F3, White no longer has to fear that E4 pawn being taken after a B4 push, and so Bishop H6 is very much back on the agenda. So thank you, that makes total sense to me. H5 stopping in its tracks, and also certainly in the immediacy stopping any bishop to H6.
That's right, it makes a lot of sense. I imagine that if White goes knight h3, Black will take off that knight and just play. I mean, you can allow bishop h6, to be honest. You can allow it. It's not the end of the world. But I've always noticed, I wrote this book called Making the Castle King. And one of the things that stood out for me from a strategic perspective, one of the things that I learned was whenever White manages to exchange bishops, dark square bishops, the fianchetto bishop, they score very, very heavily because the attack is just very straightforward on the king's side. Once the dark squares have gone, particularly if Black has castle king's side, as Bobby Fischer said in My 60 Memorable Games, even like beginner players can beat grandmasters in that kind of position. You just got h5, take on g6. You don't really have to think about it very much. So. Yeah, somebody said in the chat, Baz Maniac, that rings a bell actually, this username, 966. I played Danny at the Scottish Blitz in Edinburgh 2013. If I remember, I had a good position and dropped a piece. I don't particularly remember that game. What's your name, sorry? I remember playing the Scottish. I actually played one with Simon and Keith around about that period. It was organised by a guy called Jonathan Edwards, maybe? Not the triple jumper turned...
Danny, I'm just really enjoying what's happening. We've got, if this happened in your channel, there would be an immediate ban, chat ban, and it like be a lifetime ban. The Dr. Drink and Drive, who yesterday seemed quite sober, but today has probably been indulging in a few. Do you see what he said? Is that Nigel Short?
Oh yeah, me and Nigel are very good friends. We've long been very supportive of one another.
But do you often get confused for Nigel Short?
Not really, but we do kind of look similar because we're both, we both play chess. We both got dark hair. We both got glasses. We're both from England, so in that way, we've got a lot of similarities. He's quite a lot taller than me, though, I think.
By the way, Dr. Drink and Drive, all banter. I know whether it was not meant to be, it wasn't meant to be an insult. We know that. I just thought I'd try and make something of it. But Danny's feathers are incredibly unruffled, not for the first time.
I've actually played him recently on chess.com. I think I won one game, and then we played a few more, like a few weeks after that, and he beat me a couple of times. He's obviously a much stronger player than me. A great player for English chess. The other thing I'd say about Nigel was I did actually buy his book recently, which was called Winning, and I actually really enjoyed it.
That's quite a nice compliment, actually. That is probably the nicest thing that's been said about him.
Yeah, but the thing is, I grew up with these kind of, that's how I really got into chess, was like reading chess magazines like BCM and Chess. Chess Magazine, which is a Malcolm Payne publication, and New in Chess. And so all those kind of, very detailed annotations and talking about, what it was like to play these Grandmaster tournaments in the 1980s, 1990s is kind of what fascinates me, I just recently got a book through the post by Sarawat about my duels, So that's kind of, I suppose that's just point of view from Simon's perspective. He could have played some, no disrespect to his opponent. It seems like both of them have left the board at this point. Maybe they're having a little discussion outside.
By the way, if we get back, a little bit like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Maybe they're arranging some sort of
discussion. Yeah?
They're arranging some sort of fireworks just so that whatever the result, at least it could be some brilliant play from both sides. I don't know if I'm mistaken here, but so after Simon went H5, White's next move, I guess it's a part of the plan, but surprised me a little bit. Is it
he went
not
A4, did he?
No, he went castles queenside, which just feels like you're telegraph. Obviously you moved, well, not just telegraph. You're actually doing it. Is that? I would be quite happy if I was black to see this move straight away, or am I just exaggerating the potential danger of like blacks pushing on the queen side?
No, I think castles is a perfectly normal move there.
Okay.
Black's attack, it could potentially be very strong, but it's not so clear how you break through because it's going to take you 1-2 moves. So you're going to have to go knight d7, bishop b7, rook c8, and c5 to get anything concrete going. You could go knight d7 to b6 with the idea of pushing b4, and then if the knight goes back to e2, I get knight c4. If the knight goes back to b1, maybe I go a5. But it doesn't look. That's what I've always wondered about these moderns. Is how does black actually get an attack on the queen side? So I'm intrigued to see.
Well, I'll tell you, you'll be even further intrigued when I put the live move on the board, because it surprises me that that Simon's dived in, because by your plan, one of your plans, for example, which was knight to d7 to b6, after the push b4, at least that removes any sensible prospect of white playing knight to a4. And so what's happened in the game is Simon immediately went b4.
Wow.
Oh, you're surprised by this, yeah?
Well, I think Simon knows what he's doing now. I think he does. He obviously knows a lot more theory about this line than I do, because he played this quite fairly quickly as well.
By the way, we're being told as well, and we do appreciate this because we do not have an engine running here. I would never do that to Danny, and that is that apparently these are all the top moves.
Yeah. So some kind of theory, I'm sure.
So it's comes up theory as well. So White also has the option after this b4 push of retaining that knight on the queen side. So obviously if there were to be a black knight on b6 covering this a4 square, this knight would be forced back in some direction. It could go to b1, but as you mentioned, Danny, it might go back to e2. But the white did take the opportunity of keeping that knight in contact with the queen side. The advantage of having this knight on a4, it may look a bit odd to people, but it does slow up any immediate prospect of black playing a5 to a4.
Yeah, this comes back to, somebody said so far all best engine moves. It comes back to what I was saying earlier about, is chess dying because of computers and how strong they are. You know, my most fascinating subject.
No, that's fine. I don't know if you obviously tuned in for a bit yesterday, which was brilliant for you to watch us at times. But Nick Pert was having a similar idea about the prospect of people being able to pray against him, at length. And I think he said, and I sort of said to him, a lot about chess 960, of course. For those of you who don't know, obviously just rearranged the pieces in one of the 960 possible variants of situations according to the rules of the game. But he made it, and I said, well, I'm relatively speaking really rubbish at this because I very rarely fiend Chetto my bishops in normal chess, and I just really hopeless in these. I don't really understand it. I kind of like understand just some structures which are much more like to arise from normal chess than 960, where often your bishops are on very funny diagonals. And he responded by saying, well, how about we have the sort of the TCEC, the sort of computer style chess where we keep the normal position, but we come to the board and the arbiters just set up a position like 4 or 5 moves in a sort of in a sensible position, but not one from a random opening, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with all these artificial things, and I would count chess 960 in that, is something slightly desperate when you start creating all these kind of random contrived rules.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, like I said before, I grew up loving chess. I grew up being fascinated by the game, the history, the history behind the openings. The whole idea of artificially changing it in a way, it doesn't appeal to me. I've never liked chess 960. I just find it an ugly game. I hate chess 960, I'll be honest with you. I don't like it at all. It doesn't appeal to me whatsoever. I'd rather play a different game than chess if I have to play chess 960. So yeah, I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, there's an interesting thing in golf. Not like me to mention golf, obviously.
That's right, Karen.
But there's this rule now with it. Apparently, they're going to introduce a different ball, because the problem is in golf now that
like a football?
Well, no, not a football, but a different golf ball.
Oh, I see.
That the professionals can't hit as far, so it's going to limit players like Rory McIlroy, John Ram, whatever, Scotty Scheffler, to hitting it 15 to 20 yards shorter than what they would normally hit it. And the reason they're bringing this golf ball in is because professional golfers are hitting the ball so far off the tee that they're making historic golf courses like St Andrews obsolete. I mean, I actually went to the Open last year, St Andrews, and literally it just slowed to a crawl around the turn. Like, holes like 9, 10, 11, 12, a lot of them are short par 4s. So everybody's driving the green, which creates a backlog because you have to wait for the green to clear before you start playing the hole. And
well, they've got shared greens at St Andrews as well, haven't they, in some of these holes?
Yeah, but it did create a long pause in play. And a lot of these rounds, I think Tiger Woods round was something like 6 hours or something, and or something ridiculous. I think he was playing with Max Homa and Matthew Fitzpatrick from memory, but anyway, the point is that they're bringing in this shorter ball from 2026 in tournaments like the US Open and the British Open, and or maybe the US Masters, I'm not entirely sure. But what I was thinking was, is there something similar we can do in chess to kind of limit the effects of technology on preparation? Could we say to people, look, you're just going to have to hand your computer in at the start of the tournament? And just not.
Yeah, but it's going to be quite hard to police. I know we're having a principal discussion, and the idea, the concepts behind hypothetically having certain ideas is not necessarily about the enforceability of them. I mean, that obviously would matter in the nth degree in the real world. But you're talking about how we can, how can we improve it? I guess the only problem with setting up sensible positions after 4 or 5 moves is it actually will aid the people studying their theory before the tournaments, because they'll just study everything, and you actually have to end up studying so much more rather than just your openings. But I suppose it means that you're less likely to get tricked up in a certain prepared specific line, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but there is a big problem now, and actually, I mean, I read last week that a lot of these AI people like Elon Musk have actually written an open letter saying we need to be much more careful about how we use this artificial intelligence technology, because there is a danger that you surpass mankind with this intelligence. You know, people can use Chat GPT to write essays and stuff and pass grades in university and college. Then that's kind of a scary, you know, development. I mean,
have you ever considered using that yourself, Danny, in your sort of like dating ambitions?
Well, let's not go into that, but it's true that
let's actually just momentarily, just briefly, because I think people want to know about this. I was just thinking it could make you come across as a really rounded character if you sort of like, you know, obviously your natural charm combined with, you know, this sort of, I don't know, like holding it back a little bit with what's it called? Chats.
I was reading this article earlier about terrible celebrity interviews where they've stormed off. So be very careful that I could do like one of these celebrities and just storm out, because I'm very unhappy about my co-presenters. You know,
angles.
Yeah, but it's funny. Yeah, when you go into shots now, like I go into WH Smith's, right? And
do you get recognised?
Not normally. You know, sometimes people say, "Is that Nigel Shaw?" You know? Oh, it's Nigel Shaw. Everybody. Oh, no.
But I suppose if you did ask for an autograph, you'd probably be 50-50 on signing it yourself or Nigel Shaw.
Actually, here's a quiz question, but. No Google.
Maybe for the chat.
No Googling.
No Googling chat.
Which year was Nigel Shaw born? What year was he born in?
I reckon I know the answer roughly.
And what year was Kasparov born in?
I reckon Shaw was born in about 60. Sorry, no, I don't know. 1969. I'll go for Shaw.
Somebody's already got it right. 65, correct.
Oh wow. Okay.
Because Kasparov, I remember writing, he was Kasparov was born in 63, and he said that it was Short's bad luck to be born in very similar time period to himself.
But by the way, Danny, sorry, I have to interrupt because Dr. Drink and Drive's back with us. Brilliant name, but obviously don't try that at home if that's even possible. Summer of '69. I assume he's jumped ahead to the requests.
Isn't that a song by Bryan Adams?
Yeah, I assume that he's like decided to jump, not worry about Nigel Short's year of birth. He's just decided we're back to the
song that I like. I can sing well. I don't. Yeah.
So you're saying no to that one?
I'm saying no to that one. Yeah.
Okay.
I might sing it later, but yeah, come back to what I was saying. You go to Smiths, and there's people employed to work there, but they don't seem to work there because the point is there's like a machine now you can use to sign in your items. So you like they're just standing there, and you feel sorry for them because it's like this machine there, and it's taking people's jobs. A lot of these machines, because it's kind of like, you know, what jobs are really relevant.
Well, there are some jobs which are relevant, because I don't know if you ever heard this story about sort of, you know, the self-scanning, like the Tesco's or Sainsbury's checkouts. There was a guy in London when they first came out. I think it was a Tesco's local,
right? And
he'd realised, he'd reasoned that, you know, in order to shoplift but try to get away with it, he'd like worked out that, you know, if he'd bought a couple of expensive bottles of wine, instead of like scanning them across like naturally and like paying for them like a responsible person would, he just weighed them as loose onions.
Oh yeah. A lot of people try these kind of tricks.
But the issue was, like, so he eventually got caught after all his goods one day being loose onions. And I do think they have like sort of like someone supposedly looking over like the screen of what people are buying. And I think the issue is that you know, obviously having all your goods as loose onions is quite strange. The biggest issue was, though, he'd been getting away with this for a couple of weeks, and the particular Tesco's local store didn't even sell loose onions.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So how knows how he got away with that for a while is anyone's guess. But you're talking about automation, I guess, and like these sort of like,
I mean, the thing is, like, what we're doing. I mean, that's the thing about chess. Well, watching Simon play. No disrespect to anyone in this tournament, but if we've watched the computer versus computer tournament, the standard is far higher than even what Ivanchuk is producing, right? So why are we watching Simon play? Why are we watching Ivanchuk play? Whatever. Well, it's because we're interested in their personality. We're interested in them as people. You know, we kind of emphasize with them. I guess. I think Simon's in a difficult position now because, knight a4 seems to have taken him by surprise. Don't particularly like Black's position. I don't like the opening.
So yeah, thanks very much for tying it back in. Only I think I can't remember who it was. Maybe only one crazy dude was saying is she's surprised that Simon's thought for so long, and maybe Danny, you've hit the nail on the head. He's thought for so long because he doesn't like this position, and because he was the chat comment was, well, look, the B pawn's hanging. A5 just seems like the move to play. Why is he thinking for like 20 minutes? Unless he's already a bit concerned about the blocking up, like not, what does this A5 bring him? Was he thinking about sacking B4 even? Seems a bit extreme, but
I don't think so because Bishop D7. Initially, I thought Bishop D7 was a good move because I thought, well, I was forced to play B3, and then you would take on A4, and then you'd have a lot of weaknesses on the queen side.
Sorry, let me just put that on the board. So, like you're saying that White would probably not respond like this because there's a lot of weak squares. This pawn could be targeted. I guess the queen could maybe come like this, but
the problem is you take on B4, and that doesn't seem like even remotely sufficient compensation for the pawn.
And obviously that has the benefit. Of course, it wins a pawn. It defends the knight on A4. And the knight can always now drop back to C3. Now the B pawn's been eliminated. That knight has a pretty healthy retreat square, which gets it back into contact with everything else and removes it from the side of the pawns.
Exactly. So, I don't really like that possibility at all. I mean, even though Simon's a creative player, I don't think that he would give a lot of. So I'm wondering what he's actually thinking about here because it seems to me like.
Well, he has played A5, by the way, Danny.
Yeah, that does seem forced, right? And now I would expect the reply possibly B3, so that White could meet Bishop D7 with knight back to B2.
Let's just put it on the board. I'll tell you what surprises me a little bit, and I guess it's. I mean, I was talking to someone else about this, and sort of saying that I think in this tournament it's demonstrated that Simon's had some, obviously one fantastic, brilliant game of Magnus Opus, but sometimes in the other games he's been very sort of inconsistent, I believe, in terms of like he's had some really good moves, some really good ideas, and then occasionally he's played some very quick moves which have sort of backfired on him. And someone was saying like, do you think that's because he's not, attuned to like over the board tournament chess to the level that he needs to be for a Reykjavik Open, that consistency you require?
Oh, I mean, 100%. I mean, I myself, I'm always complaining about the amount of rust. This is why partly the reason I do badly in the 4NCL. I mean, the 4NCL this season has been a total disaster for me. I haven't won a game. Very rare that I go for a whole tournament. I mean, there's still 3 rounds left, so I'm hoping that. But it would be much better for me if the 4NCL was over one big week like they do in I think a place like Spain, because.
Maybe France has the sort of big tournament where they all come together for like a week or something,
Exactly.
All the club teams we're talking about. Just for anyone who doesn't know, the 4NCL is the English club national of including Scotland as well. Forgive me. Exactly. The 4 Nations Club Championships where they have sort of every so often one game on a Saturday, one game on a Sunday. Maybe like the Bundesliga, they have like X number of weekends. Well, they do have that a year. Whereas there are some other tournaments the French League has always been held. Like all the top teams get together and play Monday to Friday, for example, or Monday to Sunday, for example. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bundesliga is over a traditional weekend generally, a bit like the 4NCL. But
no, that's what I was meaning, Daddy. Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to. If I misspoke, absolutely.
Right, they could probably travel on the Friday and then they play Saturday, Sunday morning, like the 4NCL. I think the 4NCL was kind of modelled on the German Bundesliga. But the point I'm trying to make is over the last few years, I haven't done particularly well at the 4NCL, and I think that's partly due to the fact that I seem to suffer more and more from rust. People say, they said to me, I said this last weekend, people say, what are you talking about? You're a professional player. But I don't actually play that much, for a professional player, for whatever reason, it may be due to lack of money or, I don't really particularly like flying, so I don't travel as much as I like. So I don't really play that much. I mean, I'd like to be playing this. I should be playing in this tournament, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so fun enough. It was, Zayd Patel's mum was asking after you to see if you're playing in this tournament. She said she hadn't seen you, but I said to her, I don't know why she's looking on the top boards. That's maybe why she hasn't seen. Ooh, I'm in a catty mood today, aren't I, Danny?
That's all right. That's what we like. We like a bit of spice, you know, because this is the one thing that Chat GPT will not give you. Chat GPT is friendly and polite and just really nice, but Blair Chat GPT would go, sod off.
That'd be very upsetting, wouldn't it? Let's get back to the position. Do you not think it's going back to this concept of the rust? It seems that, like, you know, Simon played B4 very quickly. And it's clear to everyone, and obviously clear to Simon, that White can respond knight A4. And then it's almost like, I'm just confused. I'd love to know what he was thinking about, or
maybe he thought
did he suddenly
was forced, yeah, and he did. But even if White played knight E2, I'm not sure really. It doesn't. B4 feels slightly superficial to me.
Well, at least you've got some march of the A pawn. I mean, you know, maybe at least.
Yeah, somebody was saying that this is computer's top choices, but I mean, maybe the computer likes it, but from a human perspective, it looks more natural to play bishop b7, knight e7. By the way, going back to what I was saying about the rust, yeah, I mean, the reason I think that's relevant is because I think, as I've found, as you get older, you get more vulnerable to this kind of rust. And I do think there's certain players who aren't as probably vulnerable to this rust problem as a lot, but I know from, you know, I play a kind of like creative style. I've tried to play kind of creative chess, like you know, kind of high energy kind of chess. I think Simon plays the same way. I think players like us, it does take you a while to warm up, but I think, yeah, I mean, I just think it's hard now, because it's just like you're playing against guys who, you know, a lot of the time you're playing against players who on rating you're expected to beat, and it's just like everybody's so much stronger now than they were. And, you know, like when I was looking at my games from, say, 20 odd years ago, or even further, like back in the 1990s when I first started playing in rated tournaments, probably similar time period to when Simon first started playing a lot of these tournaments. And most of the players you'd play against was sort of like 2300 plus. You very rarely played, maybe occasionally played 2200 or 2100, but mostly they were good players. Or, you know, high rated players. Whereas now, most of your opponents seem to be 2000, 2100. You might get occasionally, if you're lucky, you might get a 2400. I think Simon's chess probably works better against stronger opposition.
Yeah, he's certainly, as we've seen, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, I can't remember which year it was, when he went and played, you know, he hadn't played a lot, but he went and played the Isle of Man tournament, and he was right up there playing like 2600s every round, basically, like fight. And he beat one, drew with a couple, maybe lost to one. But, you know, I remember he was like, you know, it surprised me how someone who you know, could be rusty, like, you know, or not in the rhythm of over the board tournaments, could perform at such a high level, you know, for so many rounds in a row.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, Simon's a good player. We've already established that. It's just.
But my point about his lack of, like, over the board, you know, consistency, and you're talking about it being rust and similar, just probably exactly the same dynamic.
Partly it's rust, but also.
But he just seems to have been a bit not quite got the right rhythm of each game, or the right, you know, certainly the consistency. I don't know if you felt the same way, or whether I'm just sort of like making that up.
Yeah, it feels like a struggle. I mean, you can see that at the board. It feels like it's a struggle. It doesn't look very happy. His opponent looks more relaxed. Simon looks very intense. It's almost like he's trying too hard. And that's the problem that I've had myself, is that when you're playing these guys and you're kind of expected to win on rating, you're sitting there and you're thinking, I've really got to beat this guy or this girl or whatever.
Do you think he's knowledgeable of the fact that he's, you know, we're broadcasting his games live. You know, I know he's incredibly. I know from being his teammate and playing alongside him or watching him at tournaments, he's an incredibly, you know, hard worker at the board. So I'm not suggesting he'd be walking around. He doesn't walk around a lot generally, but I do not think he might be more relaxed if he wasn't. I don't think he's trying to make a show of pretending to sit at the boards and concentrate, but. Do you think he might, if he wasn't on a live board every day, he knows that we're streaming his games, he knows degree of spotlights on him?
I personally would find it very difficult. I mean, obviously Simon, you know, different from me, but yeah, I think that's definitely an issue, and you could argue it's probably a detrimental one. And obviously the tournament, fair play to them, they've obviously emphasised the importance of streaming. I think they realise that chess is changing now, and people are like getting into chess in a different way. and clearly this whole streaming thing is a big boon for chess in a positive way. So therefore, it makes total sense to say, look, if you want to put your tournament on the map, if you want to advertise your tournament, then let's, prioritize these streamers. So I like the idea that they're creating these special boards for the streamers. I think that's a good thing. But at the same time, for the streamers themselves, like Simon, it is creating this extra pressure because you have this pressure anyway of trying to play in this tournament. And now you know for a fact there's all these eyes on you, on your actual physical board, watching you play. It's a bit creepy, right? It's a bit like the Truman Show. There's creepy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Creepy Gorm watching your games,
I mean, I think that Imperial has got purple saying Hikaru says results have been great since he stopped caring so much because his main income is from streaming, and I think that I've heard him say that as well. Hikaru Nakamura saying this, but I think the point is Hikaru is such an incredibly strong player that the fact, and he's got a unique style that he doesn't have the pressure, the financial pressure, but he's such an amazing player that kind of works for him. Just having financial, if you had financial pressure off yourself, it might not make you a brilliant player, a brilliantly much stronger player overnight. It would give you the opportunity to spend much more time on your chess and relax and chill. Maybe it would definitely make you a better player, don't get me wrong. But do you think it'd make you more relaxed, Danny? Do you feel the pressure yourself being, the financial pressure of rocking up to a tournament and, maybe getting first place is valuable to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what the guy was saying about Nakamura is very true, but at the same time, he was already a very good player. It's not like he's suddenly, gone from like some struggling 24-20 to 20. I mean, his rating was lower than it was before. I mean, it was over 2,800 at one point, I think, very briefly, but he's always been a phenomenal player. So I think streaming is just. Effectively, he's doing what he was doing before anyway. He was doing many hours a day playing blitz chess, and the difference is now he just gets paid to do it, and gets paid very well because obviously he's extremely popular. As far as
he's a popular streamer, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a very popular streamer. As far as myself is concerned, yeah, absolutely. The whole pressure about money. I remember I played a game at Gatwick. Even a few years ago, and I was playing the last round against Vakidov, from a very strong player from Uzbekistan. He was in
very strong player.
Yeah, Jangahir Vakidov, and he was was part of the Olympiad winning team for Uzbekistan last year in the Mumbai Olympiad. I played him in the last round, and it's £500 up for grabs, right? And at some point, I saw that his queen's a little bit stuck on the edge of the board. I saw this line, I was like, I got really excited because I could trap his queen. And I didn't bother to calculate it properly. And so I sort of blundered a pawn because I didn't calculate line. And I just resigned. And look at it later, the computer just says I'm maybe clearly worse or slightly worse, but it's ridiculous to resign, right? But it's just like I was demoralised, and I was thinking, one moment I'm thinking, right, I've got a chance to win £500. Next moment I'm just totally deflated and thinking, right, I'm going to struggle to make a draw, so I just resigned. But yeah, it's like, why should you even be in that position? Because it's ridiculous to be in a position where suddenly £500 is such a lot of money to you. I mean, I'm one of the best chess players in the country. I should, in theory, be in a comfortable position. Now, the way to get into that comfortable position, as I've come to realise, is not to rely on playing. You can't rely on playing to make money. You have to rely on other sources of income. It could be related to chess, like coaching. Or
speaking of other sources of income related to chess, Danny, how do you feel about a career in chess boxing?
Well, only if you're my first opponent. Actually,
I know. Well, I don't know if I should go here. Don't leave us yet. You do have a little bit of history.
Well,
in chess, I mean, of course.
Yeah. But the thing about boxing, I mean, I read earlier it was quite sad talking about some amateur. I think this might have been kickboxing. Was some kind of amateur boxer died in a ring, and I saw this Lawrence Trent fight the other day against this Canadian.
Well, a man Hamilton.
Hamilton, yeah. And it's quite a brutal fight. You know, I was expecting it just to be like a little bit gentle sparring, but it was really going at it. And I was thinking, I mean, I actually got blocked by Lawrence Trent for that on Twitter because I made some joke and I said something like it was like two alcoholic hippos trying to stumble around an ice rink, and he clearly took offence to that comment and blocked me.
Heaven forbid! Shocking, Danny. Truly shocking that he took offence to that comment.
But I was surprised. I thought, to be honest with you, Lawrence would be a lot better than he was. You know, I was actually surprised. He did seem quite bad. Yeah, he wasn't a very good boxer. I mean, not that I'm saying I would win a fight against him, but you know, obviously I wouldn't. But I mean, he's a lot bigger than me for starters. But yeah, boxing is. I mean, I've actually done a bit of sparring at boxing. I actually sparred against Simon, funnily enough, years ago.
By the way, breaking news: you have it on very good authority from me that Simon may be making his chess boxing debut in 2023.
Yeah, that's right. I heard that as well. But the thing is, yeah, I was sparred against Simon. Simon's a lot bigger than me again, you know, and he's also got a you know, much longer reach. And effectively, I was just getting punched and really wasn't giving much back. And
that's never ideal. That's never ideal in the world of boxing, is it? Or in any sort of
sparring. It wasn't like proper
sport,
like where he's going full out and he's trying to knock me out, right? I probably wouldn't have lasted very long in that eventuality. But the point is that I realised that boxing wasn't for me because you're getting hit and it's painful. You got to accept that it's painful, and I didn't enjoy it. You know, I just thought this is painful. Why do people bother to do this?
Someone's just pointing out in the chat, if you spar with Simon, effectively he's going to beat you up once a week.
Yeah, but the thing is, with boxing, it is a good workout, you know. I mean, even if you don't actually want to get into the ring and actually fight somebody, you know, you can do sparring. It's a very good physically demanding workout. It's very good for you. So I would recommend that as a kind of a workout.
Danny, you're talking to someone who gets tired after 30 seconds of Wii boxing.
Yeah, but it's good work. Dancing as well is a good. You know, I'm a bit of a dancer, as you know. You know, I'm like, you know, sort of like. Maybe you could be the chess dancer or the chess.
Well, I mean, I think earlier on the chat, someone said Danny sings and Blair dances, but you know, it's not really my wheelhouse. Yeah. I mean, I'll leave them both to you, perhaps. You know.
Maybe I'll do both. Yeah, I'll do a little bit of Michael Jackson moonwalking. You know, sort of like.
Chess dancing, is that could be your new. That could be your new thing. You could be the world chess dancing champion.
But it's interesting, yeah. So White's played this move Bishop C4.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, indeed. Let's go back to the chess, indeed.
It's interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by Bishop C4 because I think Simon's move has kind of hit on the problem of Bishop C4. Is that why you're not going B3 there, so that knight can go back to B2.
So you're quite confident that you would be, as you said earlier, you would be looking at the idea of B3. Well, okay, let me just put something out to you there. I'll go Bishop D7.
Yeah, that is the problem. If you go Knight B2, I don't know if you go A4 immediately.
Well, that was my idea. That was what I was going to do. I mean, as the old cliched commentary thing goes, they're not my pawns, I'll just lose them. But I want to give some sensible moves.
But clearly, whether I take on B4 or not, it's a problem. You can't keep the queen side completely locked up, right? So if I take on B4, you could take on B3, and if I go AB, your idea is what?
Sorry, I was just getting confused very quickly. We need to move on the conversation, Danny, but I just want to declare myself chess dancing world champion.
What is your idea after queen takes B3?
Right. I was just going to take on B3 and take it from there.
AB?
Maybe, well, okay, I'll just claim I've got some sort of nondescript compensation.
What is
Knight C6.
I've
got an open A file.
What is your compensation?
I've got an open A file.
You've got no compensation. Queen C3.
Was that Plaskett?
Yeah, you see my game against Gormally. A complete idiot. Was there a famous story with Jim Plaskett? Somebody comes up and says, "Excuse me, Mr. Plaskett, you don't have anything better than castles in that position?" He goes, "You're some sort of idiot. Considering I was made in one, what do you think?" He's got this kind of sort of semi-posh voice. Plus,
he still believes that the major, the coughing major, nothing to see there.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty open and shut case that that guy was cheating.
So do I, but obviously Plaskett's written extensive internet articles about never happened.
It's a little bit like the chess thing in a way, because once people realise they can cheat, they will cheat. You know, that's human nature, right?
Oh, not everyone will do that, will they, Danny?
Not everybody.
Let's be honest, but I know, but there will be a. There's always a bad element out there, isn't there?
Exactly, as a minority, and it's funny, yeah, because I was reading that newspaper article earlier, and it was really talking about AI, but effectively it just moves on to all this salacious stuff about cheating. So sort of dressed up as this article that's fascinated by the, but yeah, they just talk about cheating, and I mean, there's the thing, you know, I think there is a lot of cheating that goes on online, but I don't think there's actually that much cheating over the board. Of course, you don't know, because, you know, it could be more than you realise, but I think there's only, you know, people who cheat over the board is a very rare thing, because you have to really go to great lengths to cheat over the board. Whereas you could cheat online, I suppose, a little bit easier. I don't know.
Okay, go back. Talk about, like, you know, we're not cheating here. We don't have the engine running. I don't know if that's cheating or not. But so you're saying that after had he played this, then okay. So you're saying that A4 might not scale you because if Queen takes B4. What if I delay this? What if I sort of play, I don't know, instead of that knight? I don't know, knight. What if I go knight C6? Is this ever a good idea, or am I just going to get the run around?
No. I mean, it's, that's probably the move I would play. But
okay.
Because now A4 is more of a no, but A4 you still got knight A4, haven't you? So
also, I don't have my bishop. Of course, the downside is I'd sort of be maybe committing to sacrificing an exchange. Which
I mean, the more I look at this, the
more
I think, why isn't Simon playing like the Sicilian, you know, or something like? But okay, I mean, the perk, you know, I guess it has its, you know, the modern whatever, it has its, you know, if you want to avoid opening preparation, then. But yeah, it's interesting that the guys play bishop c4. So
okay, let's have a look at the actual moves on the board. So Danny's suggesting the b3, and thank you for David explaining to us why you think that's the case. White played bishop, black played a5, defending b4. Simon played that. His opponent went bishop c4, and Simon continued bishop d7, which is attacking the knight on a4. And once again, his opponent is actually thought for quite a few minutes here. Yeah. He must be considering b3, Danny, yeah?
Yeah, so he's got two moves that are on his agenda, which is, I don't think he'd go e5, because that just seems to drop a pawn. e5, you go bishop a4, take on f6, bishop takes.
Just let's put that on the board, just to show everyone, nothing to see here other than white's just lost a pawn, it seems.
Yeah, so your two candidate moves are effectively, this is why I prefer b3, so you've got this option to go back to b2 with a knight. And so your two counter moves are bishop b3, but the problem with bishop b3 is that knight will now never have a way of defending itself. But bishop b3 does make some sense, because there is a way to defend it later. Let's say, for example, if black ever went bishop c6, queen d7. Sorry, instead of e5, Blair.
No, sorry, I have changed it now, sorry. Bishop b3, covering the knight on a4. You said bishop c6 with the idea backing that bishop up with queen d7, and that actually would basically win the knight, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I think there's a way to defend it, which is to move c4. And
now, of course, yeah, c4 now. Before queen d7, of course, yeah, absolutely, of course.
Yeah, c4 with the idea of with the idea
of queen d7 and queen c2.
Yeah.
And then white suddenly got this lovely strong output, the strong knight, actually a strong knight a4, blockading knight, I should say, plus the very strong centre is what I was going to say, what I meant to say.
Exactly. But somebody's saying that after bishop b3, the knight on a4 could get into trouble.
Yeah. Apparently b3 would be quite an engine mistake here. Let's try and work out why. So I assume the case would be after bishop c4. If b3 is an engine mistake, it can only be because of takes, Danny, can't it?
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably just says that it won't like the structure And one possible plan is to go knight d7 to b6, but that does run into bishop b5.
No, bishop b5.
Right. Just maybe in general, just doesn't like the. I mean, if you look at your king, it's very exposed now on c1. But at the same time, you know, black still has to prove how do you get to that king. But in the long term, yeah, as you know, like in the long term, you know, you don't necessarily have to think, you know, how do I make the white king immediately? You just know in the long term that king is now a lot more exposed. And what is
absolutely, that's a very key point. You know, the breaking up of the structure around white's king, it doesn't need to be an immediate kill. It doesn't need to be taken advantage of anytime soon. Exactly. Also, in end games, these pawns are going to be potential targets, aren't they? So, you know, they're always even if it's not a checkmating like down the line or an attack on the white king on the queen side, there'll still be a lot of weaknesses, you know, weak pawns, weak squares, etc., etc.
Yeah, exactly. So interestingly,
he did go bishop b3, by the way, just to keep you up to speed.
B3, and Simon's reacted quite quickly.
Has he?
Yeah, I think he's played almost immediately, right?
Knight c6 he's played.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Just develop a piece. But I'm not sure what Black's plan is. I mean, it seems to me that...
I agree with you, because we're now blocking in this c pawn. I know white has this square pretty well covered with all these things, and also the potential opening up of the d file. It's nothing anytime soon, but I tend to agree with you. By putting the knight on c6, it's hard, even if it's Black's move next. What would they do, Danny?
What would they do? But also, it's not that clear what White's plan is either. Because do you?
I want to go for. I was going to say I want to go for g4, but
Well, how do you have
g4 in? Yeah, I mean, okay, maybe I want to go. Can I go f4? Is this obviously too weakening for the g4 square? Maybe.
The only move I would consider here, if I was White, I would consider. I don't like f4. F4.
Yeah, well, just let me put it on the board. Well, you can tell me what's rubbish. I don't mind that.
Doesn't that just drop e4, no?
Oh, okay, that's probably what's rubbish. Okay.
But maybe I would, you know.
Correct, Daddy. You passed my subtle test. You just keep it. I'm just checking you're putting all your efforts into this this challenge.
How rude! I'm the most professional person you've ever come across. As you know.
I agree.
Knight h3 is the move I would consider strongly here, because I feel like with the bishop on b3, it makes even more sense now to put the knight on g5.
So you want to play knight c? I know you can keep up to speed with all this. Is Black thinking about e5 as a question?
Yeah, I think he is. And he might well respond to knight h3 with e5, because then after d5, I'm even wondering if Black can maybe give a pawn with knight d4 and somehow get the dark squares.
Yeah, I've seen this type of idea before in some of these lines, by the way. So let's think about. So we'll deal with that in a minute. You're thinking White should maybe play.
In a second, mate.
Not a problem. I'll keep hold of this. I'll just do a little read. Thank you very much, Cruzy Lee. Of course, lovely to see you here. I assume that's a subscription, 12 months, fantastic. Primarily directed at our special guest, Grandmaster Danny Gormally.
It's a very difficult position to calculate. I was actually thinking...
What? He hasn't taken on g6?
What?
Oh, is that all right? Was that... I can't believe he hasn't eliminated the g6 pawn.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I
mean, I don't know what the evaluation is, but that's a crazy practical decision, isn't it?
Simon's been given a reprieve. I mean, that is incredibly lucky, because I think that he's long odds on to win again now. Because rook d4... Okay, from a practical point of view, from a theoretical point of view, maybe
it's probably drawn, yeah.
Okay, but it's not an easy position.
Why did he not shatter those connected?
I'm sorry,
kingside pawns.
That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
I know you don't have much time, but you have to take on g6.
He was obviously so scared, Danny, about your immediate reaction, which was d3. But that, to me, once you take on g6, you take on a4. You know, you've only got these two. You've only got these 2 pawns to worry about. The f pawn, the g pawn's covering any advance of the 3 pawns together.
People are too scared.
That's insane.
You know, it's very interesting. I think it was Gupta who was actually playing this tournament. He wrote an article for New in Chess. He does this article. I don't know if he still does, but he did this article for New in Chess I once read. It's very interesting, talking about how people
are scared of two connected pass pawns. They have these kind of like prejudice.
Well, Danny Goncalo, sorry, I appreciate you're not always being enjoyed by the interruption, but Goncalo in the chat saying exactly this. Just thank you.
Oh, he's not even bothered to. He's gone rook a3. Wow. So the rook d4. He wants rook a4. But so what? You know, you just go like a rook back or something, and then yeah, you grind. I mean, this is like this famous Bobby Fischer endgame. Bobby Fischer versus Boris Spassky. I'm not sure if it's exactly this kind of material difference, but he had something like 3 pawns for the bishop. And he managed to win the game.
Richard Port, absolutely. They've just made the time control. That is rook takes d4, black's 40th move. They both get a bonus 30 minutes. So don't worry if white's clock runs down. He's not losing on time. And of course, you assume they've just reached a time control. Not only because it is now on move 41, but because both the players have got up and left the table either to walk around, go to the bathroom break, maybe have a cigarette if that is their want and desire, or to throw up in the bathroom, as David Jones just said. Bearing in mind the topsy-turvy nature of this, white must be cock-a-hoop in the sense that he could have taken on g6. Let's just go back and look at that in a little bit of cold light day, because I think whatever the outcome of this is, white could have made his task so much simpler.
Yeah, I mean, very, very strange mistakes preceded this game.
Absolutely, I agree. So in this position here, and of course,
Dan,
if I ever interrupt you, I do apologise. It's not absolutely deliberate. I hope you can forgive me. Rook takes g6 check, king f7, rook a6, yes d3, but this f pawn can't really, come down the board. People are scared. You said it, Danny, of two connecting passed pawns, and they are very well advanced, by the way. You've got to look at a move like this as white and say, "Ooh, am I scared?" But with the bishop covering d1,
but there is a potential threat to go rook b8, rook b1, but it takes a few moves to get there. So white had some moves in the meantime.
Okay, can I just play? Okay, can I play c4 then? My idea is to stop your rook getting an open file, but I appreciate I'm allowing your pawns to advance a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very concerned as white. As black, that I could end up losing this game. Because
what happens after e2, Danny? How does white defend against this? My plan was to obviously go. Sorry, my plan. Oh no, sorry. I meant that's not even a threat, is there?
No, not really. No.
There's no threat because if I advance with d2, the king comes to e2 and covers here. If I advance with e2, this isn't even a threat because the king takes on.
But in general,
e2.
I would just take on g6 automatically. I didn't even think about it. I'm going to have to take a g6. If these pawns are good, they're good. I hold my hands up. But in endgames, you want activity. You don't want to be caged in by these huge pawns, right? Pawns on g6, f5, h5. For the rest of the game, you're going to be caged in. In this endgame, white is in for a lot of suffering.
By the way, I think after c4, my idea, so e3, c4, I don't know if he wants it in the exact position, but I think it's starting to get very dangerous, by the way, Danny. Yeah. I don't know if the guy was suggesting, the person in the chat, LD Sawson, was suggesting it, or LD, But here, I think rook d4 is actually one of the ways that these two pawns could cause white a major headache.
Yeah, definitely, man.
I think this could be a problem, maybe my c4 is too... So maybe, I still would have taken on g6. Maybe I'd need to find a better move than... Let's go back. So after bishop takes a4, you're absolutely right, Danny. This idea of getting in with the rook, or if c4 at some point playing rook d4, maybe some white needs to find a better move here.
I don't care what the evaluation is.
I agree with you.
This is what games are like.
I'd have taken on g6 all day long and just trusted myself to find the solution here, and I'm sure there would be a solution here for white.
He feels like he can hold this ending, but I'm not convinced.
Hold on, how about this way to hold it? What if I could even just do something immediate, like bishop here, and then rook here or something? Going to a drawn rook and pawn endgame, maybe at some point,
Well,
if I could just deal with this straight away.
d2, you have to be careful. I have d2 winning on the spot, so you have.
No, because I go king d1. I go king d1. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's always resources, right?
So I was thinking about going here, right? So obviously that stops you from going rook b8 clearly because I'm going to win your d pawn. Maybe if I have to, I'll go rook h6 first and then just sacrifice my bishop on d3 if I'm really panicking, if I'm really freaking out.
I don't like the way he's played this game. To be honest,
let's go back. Yeah. Well, who?
Well, I don't like the way either players play this game.
It's got silly, but time travel. It got silly, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I think both players were nervous, and I think Simon is. I mean, it almost feels like he's doing what I've been doing recently. That it almost means too much, and he's lost the art of just casually making moves and just playing confidently. Rogers has made another bogey, by the way. He's really imploding this round. It's like serious.
By the way, Nazahi saying he did only have 30 seconds to decide. Chris seems a bit harsh. I mean, in principle, we're analysing it 5 minutes later. In principle, I'd agree with that. I'd be a big supporter of that comment. But Danny and I were just like, we just assumed rook takes g6, didn't we, Danny?
You have to.
We just assumed rook takes g6 was going to happen. Like, we would have played that instantly.
And I think partly sometimes people think, why did my opponent make that move? Sometimes people don't exploit their errors because they can't really get inside the mindset of their opponent. You try to think to yourself, are there situations where my opponent's more likely to make mistakes? He's short of time. He's a complicated position. I think if I was white in that situation, I think, well, maybe it would be very easy for Simon to make a mistake or anyone to make a mistake there because of the situation on the board, right? It's a very sharp position. So therefore, it's a very easy situation to make a mistake. I don't think Simon's opponent was wise enough in that situation to say, look, yeah, he's maybe miscalculated. Like you pointed out that maybe he missed his bishop d4 move, right?
I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, he probably missed his bishop d4 move. So therefore, you have to be thinking, right, he's missed that move. So therefore, I now need to exploit this situation. I need to exploit this situation and sort of take this game by the scruff of the neck.
Danny, as we've reached the time control, I'll leave you with a question. I'm just going to leave you if that's right. Could you hold the fort, or we could take, if you need a break, take a couple of minutes. I really do need a break. I'll leave you with a question, maybe so we don't have dead air, and I'll be back pretty quickly. I've just got to make a phone call as well.
Sure, mate.
If white goes rook takes a4, would you or wouldn't you?
Oh, you mean exchange? Yeah,
it's a question in the chat. Anyway, look, Danny, I'll let you answer that question. I'll see you in about literally a couple of minutes. I've got to bloody phone this restaurant for the 3rd night running.
Yeah,
they're not going to be impressed with this, are they? Hold on.
Yeah, I feel in answer to Blair's very interesting question.
Yeah, I'm going to have to cancel my reservation. The GingerGM's fucked it up again. Yeah, I'm going to be here for ages, so I'll have to catch up with you.
Cancelling the kebab restaurant.
All right, yeah, bye for now.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very interesting question by Blair. But the point is that normally 4 versus 1 with a bishop would probably be a draw. But it depends on the situation. But yeah, I'd be very scared that after rook a4, if you were thinking from Black's perspective, from White's perspective, that White could simply exchange, Black could simply exchange the rooks and be winning, and he could, if he decided that wasn't winning, move the rook back. So you have to be very careful that rook takes a4 isn't just losing. So in that case, you could just play bishop a4. But after bishop a4, of course, you have no threat. I mean, So bishop a4, maybe Black would just improve his king. He'd go like king f6. He'd probably go. His gradual plan would be to slowly advance the pawns. To go h4 g5, bring the king to e5. I'm not sure if it's enough, but if you bring the king to f4. This is going to go on for a long time. If you remember this, Bobby, I don't know if anyone actually remembers that game, Bobby Fischer versus Boris Spassky, or even old enough to remember the game being played at the time. I do recall reading about that match, and there was some famous ending where I think Fischer was maybe 4 pawns up. He had 4 pawns for a bishop or something like that, and he managed to win a really long endgame. Of course, Fischer was a great kind of grinder. You know, it was amazing. I was thinking about this earlier, actually. I was thinking, you know, what separates the world champions from lesser mortals? You know, even like lesser GMs or whatever. I think one of the things that really stands out to me is they're just very, very good all-round players. They're very, very good in general play. So, like, there's never been a world champion who's been weak in the endgame. Because endgames are generally about native talent, about making moves, putting your pieces on the right squares. So, you know, world champion level players, whoever's been world champion, even someone like a weak world champion like Max Juve, their general play is very good. You know? I don't know if you'd agree with that, Blair.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Danny. I do, for once, I was quiet. That's why you had the floor to yourself.
What characterises world champion players, and you know, what sets them apart, and what sort of differentiates them from other lesser mortals? And I was saying one of the things is probably just their general play. I think Dean has put on our jacket again. She's looking confident again.
Looking confident. By the way, to everyone, I've put a poll up, and the question of the poll is, what are we voting for, Danny? I know what I want to vote for, but we have a team vote. If you've got a vote, Danny, have you?
A vote on what? I don't know.
No, I put the poll up, there's a poll on top of the chat. Although I'll just say what the poll is if anyone's interested. What is the result of this game?
Oh, what is the result of this game? What do I think? I said at the start of the game, I think Simon will win. Obviously he's going to stick with his situation because only Black can really.
Okay, I think only Black can win as well. I'm voting for Black wins, by the way, just to let everyone know.
It's either going to be a win or a draw. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Simon does something really, really bad. I mean, that was the thing about that other variation. There was a slight chance that White could have won that with a pass seaport. Unrealistic, probably, but you know.
By the way, Danny, I played alongside Simon in Austria last year in the European Team Championships, and he got to a position where he had Rook Bishop versus Rook and 4.
Yeah.
The 4 were fractured, right, but he won, would you believe?
Oh, you mean he won with so he was a piece down or something?
Yeah, no, he had Rook and Bishop versus Rook and 4 pawns, and he hoovered up the 4 pawns eventually.
Yeah.
And won with Rook and Bishop versus
How
Rook.
strong was his opponent? Like 23.
Grandmaster.
He was a Grandmaster.
Yeah.
I think I vaguely remember the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But
by the way, these 4 pawns of Blacks, assuming the A pawn drops off, which it will do, either by the Bishop or the Rook, there's no way realistically White can win in a similar manner because there's no way that Black can possibly. And by the way, the Grandmaster should have lost that endgame. He should have lost his 4 pawns. But here, because Black's 4 pawns are connected, there's almost impossible realistically for White to win unless Simon does something insane and loses it.
Well, let's say lose all the pawns, get Rook and Bishop versus Rook. I mean,
we might lose that with 30-second increment.
I mean, if you were played, say, Keith Arkle is obviously famous Rook and Bishop versus Rook. You think
I'd lose with 30-second increment.
You think you'd lose to Keith Arkle with that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't. I even know some of the joint techniques, by the way, but with 30-second increment, I'd basically have to play the critical moves with 30 seconds every time.
He's got 22 out of 22, but I do think it's important the level of opposition. I think a lot of those wins came in weekend. I'm not saying he hasn't been good players in that sequence, but a lot.
But
the level.
Danny, by the way, he now claims it to be 25 out of 25, and it's gone up. And he hasn't even played any Rook and Bishop versus Rook in the intervening period.
Yeah, but he's obviously. I mean, Keith's a very good endgame player because I think his level of natural talent is very high. So therefore, his weaknesses, which are like opening preparation and so on, aren't exposed when you kind of get like a position like that, which is just a primitive position, right? But having said that, I do think that if you're playing against Grandmaster plus level opposition, and you've got Rook and Bishop versus Rook, most of the time they're probably going to draw,
I did see one of the 2700 rated players playing with like 2-second increment on one of these title Tuesdays. I know that's 1 second increment there, so it might not have been there, with a couple of second increment, and he held it so consummately easily.
I don't think it's that difficult to hold if you don't. I mean, I studied it for this book that I wrote, and I mean, there are certain positions you could get into as black where it becomes incredibly difficult to hold. But as long as you know certain techniques like very well, like the second rank technique and the
and then when you switch for checking behind on the certain files
even
and cutting off
the rook pinning the bishop is a very
Yeah.
good defense. And I actually played it out against a computer, and the computer couldn't beat me. You know, so
well, because it is effectively that's the reason is because you played it well, not because the computer misplayed it. Obviously,
through that in a practical game, you play. Someone like Keith is very resourceful.
Daddy, have you ever tried playing Queen versus Rook against a computer?
No, I haven't. No.
Try that.
Oh, you
Try
mean
that
with
with
the
like
queen
5
side?
minutes on your clock.
With
It
the
will
queen side or with the
with the queen side. With the queen side, yeah.
yeah.
I bet you won't win every time. The computer will always find the A will set up the
I don't
right
think I've win
defense.
once, let alone.
By the way, the computer will always set up the right defense, and even if you know how to break it down, when it breaks down its connection of king and rook, it will always put its rook on the most tricky square. By the way, I don't think I've ever done it.
Variation.
And I even tried to. I went away and look at the theoretical way to win queen versus rook. Put it on stockfish with like 5+3. Couldn't win.
Toilet. Just gonna nip
Sure,
to
carry on. Okay. By the way, the result of the polls in 72% of people were predicting. I don't know what we're hoping for, but we're predicting a victory to Simon, and I think that's not unreasonable. Theoretically, this position will definitely be drawn. It's very, very hard to see black losing unless he did, something. Just basically, in a practical sense, it's very hard to see black losing. The key question is, how was white taken on a4? Has white offered the exchange of? He hasn't even taken on a4. I suppose that pawn's there for the taking sooner or later, but it seems strange to me that he hasn't. You've got to take this pawn on a4 sooner or later, and clearly, I think he's delayed the decision, but the problem is the decision still remains. And in the intervening period, he's potentially allowing black to advance some kingside pawns. Oh, by the way, white, the only side that has winning chances here is black, because for white to win, not only he'd basically have to pick up all the pawns, and this pawn he'd have to somehow start off on g6, and it's not going to happen. I mean, black, it's just not going to happen. I mean, black definitely has winning chances, and I think in a practical sense black has very good winning chances, because I don't believe, if I go to live board, white played king e2, which seems very strange to me. He was obviously uncertain whether to potentially allow, I believe, the exchange of rooks or not, and maybe if he was uncertain about that, why not just take with the bishop? Because in the previous position, if white takes with the rook, that is a committal decision allowing the rooks to be exchanged, but black can always avoid the exchange of rooks. So if you're afraid of the exchange of rooks, just take with the bishop anyway. From a practical point of view, if you play rook takes a4 as white here, black can always go back to rook d6, for example. Just an example. So if you're worried as white about the consequences of the rooks being exchanged, just take with the bishop. Don't worry about, just saying, Daddy, if he's worried about the exchange of rooks, just take on a4 with the bishop, because rook takes a4 doesn't force the exchange of rooks anyway.
Yeah. I mean, exactly.
He's played king e2, by the way, which delays the inevitable, I think, doesn't it? It's just he's now got more to worry about. He's now got his head in his hands thinking, how am I going to take on a4 next go?
Well, I mean, I think basic parameters of this ending remain the same, which is that effectively a4 will drop, and we'll get a situation where black will have to work out how to advance. Adina's taken her jacket off yet again.
Do you think Danny, I'm starting to think this is not like, I'm starting to think this is more for the audience than anything else.
Well,
the jacket,
and also for the opponent. If the opponent is distracted by now.
How many times did she put the jacket on and taken it off?
If the opponent is not distracted by now, he's not human.
Do you know what I'm predicting next, Daddy? Yeah. She's going to exit the arena for like 5 minutes and come back in a completely different outfit.
No, I mean, she's obviously got so good. I mean, how many followers does she have on Twitch? I think she's got a lot of followers, right?
I imagine so. I mean, but don't forget, her channel's been going for a long time, and she's a very decent player as well. Her sister does her channel with her as well sometimes.
Oh, her sister player as well, yeah.
I think she's a good player, but I don't think she's quite. I think she's a decent player, but I don't think she's quite in Dina's like caliber. Dina's like 2,300 plus. She's had great results in this tournament.
I mean, there's also Alexander and Andrea Botez. I think somebody put up the question the other day on Facebook. Is Alexander Botez the most beautiful chess player ever? And I thought, a little bit sexist. But yeah, I mean,
why was that sexist? They didn't rule out the possibility of you or me coming top of the poll, did they?
I don't think I would come in the. I don't think I would come near the top of that poll now.
Okay. So Darker Mento saying her game is live on the Botez channel, 20,000 watching, but 20,000 watching because it's the Botez channel. Likely, how many would she have? Does she not have her own channel? Well, how many is watching on her own channel? I thought her board was being streamed. I thought she's got a streaming board because it's on her own channel.
Yeah, I mean.
Anyway, by the way, look how good we are, Danny. Other streaming channels are available. But if you want drama, you've come to the right place. If you want to see a game which has topsy-turvy evaluations, up and down. And Danny, is there an app called Just Eat that you've heard of?
Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
I might have to get involved in that. It might be a case of Just Sleep app as well for me.
But I mean, I'm not. How long potentially could? I mean, even though, I mean, in theory, there's like 45 minutes left, but you've also got to factor in the fact they get increment.
Danny, this game's not going to finish before 9. Danny,
unless White another 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, but unless White, I think it could realistically go on for an hour and a half. Of course, if White sort of capitulates. And I don't think it will still take Simon quite a lot of time. It's going to go on for at least the time.
I hope that Simon plays it fairly quickly, because I'll be honest with you, I don't think these moves demand a lot of thought. What the hell has this guy played now?
I don't know what's going on. What's happened? Let me go to the live board.
He's got his
King F6. He has played Bishop takes A4.
Oh, now he's gone Bishop
H4
E8. And Bishop E8.
Bishop E8. Well, obviously threatening to try and win the game. He's not undeterred, Danny. He wants to win.
Yeah, but Simon's just gone H4 and he's just allowed Rook A6 check.
No, because Simon's go now.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
No, it looks like it's his opponent's.
No, he's gone Rook D6.
Oh, he's got Rook D6. Right.
By the way, just out of interest, why didn't you go G5? Just get on with it.
Well, yes. I mean, I don't think it really matters because.
Okay.
I mean.
Okay, go G5 next. Go arguably. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was a good. Maybe he was worried about Rook A6, Rook A5, and Bishop D7 coming in round. No, Bishop G6 coming in round the back. That was probably what he was concerned about.
Sorry, Rook.
So like
A5.
You go Rook check, right?
Oh, sorry, Rook check. Yeah. So Rook A6 check.
And then after King E5, no, Rook A6 check. Yeah. After King E5, you go Rook A5.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to go Rook D5 because King F4 does Bishop G6. These are kind of annoying things you have to look out for.
Maybe that's a way for start trying to lose the game as white again, as black rather.
Well, I don't think you lose.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. Well,
as we've already established, even if you lose all your pawns,
if you assume you're taking off the yeah.
Then it's a theoretical draw, but I mean, it's very unlikely that Simon's going to end up in that spot anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen anyway. So Simon played Rook to D6.
Very sensible move. Rook C3 now with the same idea, right? Rook C3, doesn't that pretty much force the exchange of pawns? Yeah, Rook C3. I mean, force the exchange of rooks. Oh no, but you could still go G. No, yeah, I mean, because if you go King E5, I go Rook C6. So pretty much that would force.
But by the way, the only thing I'd say about that, Daddy, is bearing in mind that White went Bishop takes A4 and not Rook takes A4. I feel he doesn't want to exchange rooks, whether it's a good idea or not.
Yeah. But I don't know, is that necessarily winning for Simon?
I don't think it's theoretically winning, but I just don't. That's why I'm saying I think it's a good idea for White to exchange rooks. However, I think if White wanted in this game, if Andre wanted to exchange rooks, why did he go Rook takes A4?
By the way, I think let's just discuss that position where you exchange rooks. By the way.
Okay, so I'll play G5.
Yeah, and then you go Rook C6. Let's just discuss that.
I'll take it.
Quite interesting.
And I'll go King E5.
Right, and then I want to see where your pawns go. So King E5, and now I want to go like Bishop D7 or something, I don't know.
I'm just going to pass and wait for you to kind of force.
Well, I definitely don't want to go here, of course, because then this bishop comes back to g4. That looks like I'm going to be impossible for me to make progress.
How do you make progress?
Well, I have to go at g4 then at some point, sooner or later.
So
Hold on, I'll go king f4 first. I'll go king f4 first.
Okay. Yeah, and then if I go king f2.
Well, I'm not saying, okay, if I want to make progress, I'll go g4. I'm going to get on with it, Daddy, because I'd like to, you know, I've got home to get to, you know.
Yeah, g4, and then I just pass. I go like bishop c8 or something, right?
Okay.
So what's
then I'll go. Okay, I'll go. I'm toying with the idea of going. No, I don't really want to go g3. It's going to be hard for me to get an h3 unless I. But hold on, maybe I can get my. What if I go back? No, I can't go back. I was thinking about going here. I can't go this because you've got king g2. Okay, I'll go g. I'll go. Sorry, I'll go h3. Then I'll just get on with it.
Really?
Well, because the reason I was thinking, if I go g3 and you. Well, maybe g3 is an interesting move. I don't know. But I was thinking maybe I could like sacrifice my h4, but I'm going to start to try and lose this game, then, aren't I?
Yeah, but interested to know what the computer valuation is if you actually trade rooks, because I'm fascinated to know, because
I think it's Danny. I think it's holding. By the way,
you think the computer would say that it's a draw, yeah?
I think it's actually. I can't even see how to make progress here, Danny. And you've just made. You haven't really done anything. You've just kept it. Just stood pat, haven't you? I can't see how I can. I don't see what I could do here as black.
So in that case, from a practical point of view, you definitely should. If it's a draw, you should go for. You should try and trade rooks.
Well, Danny, in this position here? What do you think I could try? I mean, if I go h3, can't you just take it?
I don't. I agree. I mean, yeah, but maybe you could somehow go e.
I'm not saying it's over. Maybe white's got to stop
maybe now I'm
now.
ready to go e3, and when the king moves, where does the king move to? Because if it goes to e2, I go h2.
You might actually be threatened to go h2 here.
Bishop d2, right? This still bishop b7. Sorry. So like, yeah, if I go e3, king e2, and then h2, you have bishop b7. So you're still.
But what if you go h2 first, Daddy?
h2, king g2, e3, and then bishop a6.
Hold on, so like, let's just pass for white, yeah? Okay, I'm going to go, I think this might be good, because I'm going to go h2.
Yeah, king g2.
And then e3.
And then bishop b5.
Okay, king e4?
Yeah, and then king takes...
Is this winning or not? I don't know.
King takes h2.
Okay.
And then what? F4 or something. F4, F3. Is that just winning? No, F4, king G1 is a draw, right? So
okay. What about king F3?
King F3 is a try. Yeah. It's still hard to.
Because I agree that's by process of elimination, by the way, just because F4 doesn't quite work. King F3 would be
maybe that's just winning, right? Because now
it looks quite because how are you going to get my pawn's so far advanced after I play E2?
Yeah, mate. So, but it's hard to calculate this all at the board, right? Anyway.
Oh, of course, I agree. By the way, and also by the way, White doesn't need to allow this anyway. Let's go back to live position. White doesn't need to allow this because after H3, as you said, Daddy, but Bishop D7 was just a very poor pass. It just goes to show it can go wrong. I don't think White's going to take the rooks off. By the way, just because whether he should or not, I think he possibly should. Maybe he shouldn't. I don't know, but I don't think he will. Live position, going back to live position. Rook d6, rook h3. So he's going to lose this, Danny, isn't he? If you're playing lose like this.
I thought all along he's going to lose because.
I mean,
but Simon, to be fair to this guy, he must be sitting there thinking this is like Christmas because.
What, sitting opposite just staring at the GingerGM?
And also he's got Dina in the background to kind of...
have you noticed, by the way?
Yeah.
By the way, apparently Dina's opponent's been losing for the last 30 moves, but he ain't going nowhere, Danny.
Oh, he must be loving it. Probably the most excited he's ever been in his life. Pranav drew with advantage, by the way, and looks like Lagarde on board one is going to draw with Gupta, so it's going to be as you are. Your tip, yield maths, is...
By the way, Carla Williams, who's first-time viewer...
Yeah.
Who sounds like a relation to Simon's.
Yeah.
Is taking us to task, Daddy.
Sexism. I think.
Yeah. We're being told. So, but hold on, Daddy. Let's balance the books. Hold on, we have balanced the books. We have talked about what an attractive man Simon is, and did we just say that his opponent was happy to sit opposite him for like half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to be careful. We're living in the
we apologise.
woke period. We're living in a woke period, right?
We apologise unreservedly. Danny, I think just before, as we're being joined by, we've got over 500 viewers.
Wow.
You know what we're going to do, Danny, don't you?
Yeah.
So also to distract from our malfeasance, you know.
Our dangers of falling into like Me Too lawsuits, right?
Or being taken off the air. It's ad time. It is ad time. By the way, I tell you what it is time for, is Simon on his day off, just before it heats up again, he wasn't going to dwell on the loss of last night.
Yeah, sorry.
He went around Iceland.
He didn't have a day off.
He did, sorry, did have a day off. On his morning off, I should say, forgive me. He wasn't going to dwell on his loss from yesterday. What he did was travel around, as we saw, a bit of Reykjavik, got outside the city. I don't know, pretty sure it's easy. Oh. And he stumbled across an old witch's house, Danny.
Oh, really?
And he said it was weird. And when the GingerGM says something's weird, it's weird. Here we go. Let's have a little look, see what he came across. He came across an old witch's house. I don't know whether he did, and he said it was weird. And these are a couple of pictures that he wanted me to share with you guys from the his morning travels around. It's like Simon scoots about, isn't it?
Well, the Norse god Freya. Freya. My niece is named after Freya.
What's her name, Daddy?
Well, that's her name. She's called Freya. I've got a niece. I've only got one niece or nephew, but I haven't got any nephews. I've got a niece. She's called Freya. But it's funny actually because I had a dream. I had a dream about. It's funny actually. This has come up because I had a dream the other day about I was getting chased by a witch in a house. Funny enough, like witch's house. It's funny. It's very weird that this has come up on the stream when I'm doing the commentating because I was having a dream that I was getting chased by a witch, and I went into the kitchen. My sister was there, and she's the mother of my niece, right? And my sister's called Jo Wakeling.
Who was she named after?
Jo was named after Josephine Baker, the jazz singer. There is a history of singing in my family.
Just going back to the previous picture because we're being asked, you know, what's the sort of, what is that? Is it icon? It's iconography, isn't it? Where you all, you know,
yeah.
Just go through because there are moves coming in. We don't get too distracted. But these are Simon's. Look, that's pretty weird, isn't it? When he'll come up and stream in front of you in a minute.
It reminds me of that film, the
Wicker Man.
Well, partly that as well. That was a great film with
Edward Woodward.
Edward Woodward, and it was a really good film. And
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee played the Lord of Summer Isle.
You know that he played. You know, allegedly he did that film for free because he wanted to be in it so much.
It was a great film, especially if anyone's never seen that film, especially the scene at the end where he suddenly realizes he's been duped and he's been led to this terrible fate, and
he's getting burnt.
Yeah, where he's going to be burnt in the Wicker Man. He's just, oh no, oh Lord, oh no.
Anyway, I just wanted to share those pictures of Simon's little trip out today. He wanted me to share them with you. Hopefully you enjoyed those. He went to a witch's house. As I say, for Simon to say something was weird, we've got to know it's weird. Let's go back to the live position.
I was going to say, it reminds me of that film Blair Witch Project. Well, Blair Witch Project as well. Blair. Like.
By the way, do you know what people told me? And I missed a real trick here, Danny. I should have called my streaming channel the Blair Twitch Project.
Bloody hell, that's a really...
I missed a trick there, didn't I?
It's not very original, but still quite fun.
I thought it was quite original because I don't know if there's such a thing exists, but and maybe the channel already exists.
You got to delete your original channel and rename it.
I'm going to change it to the Blair Twitch Project, yeah? It's Blue Grey Haze who said that, by the way. So it's actually, there we go. The guy who said it is taking credit for it, understandably. Why else would someone else? I did not invent it. I didn't mean to suggest I wanted to do. I mean, it was told to me. So thank you very much.
I was talking congratulations about living in Crawley with Chris Bacon. Funny enough, that's where I first saw the Blair Witch Pod. It came out in 1999.
So anyway, we've been told no on Soto's as it is heating up. White went Rook H3, which I really don't understand. It just seems to welcome some problems. It doesn't seem to have any of these counterplay tricks that you were talking about, Danny. Rook H3, and now Black went G5 and he went back to Rook C3.
Well, I mean, why not go Rook C3 immediately?
And now he's got King E5, so he might not even be able to force the exchange. He might not. He might be able to, because after Rook C6, maybe Black can go Rook D5 to stop your.
Yeah.
To stop your sort of like, if you're worried about this.
Hit the bishop directly, right?
There you go. So right, this is White is. I think White's strike. I really do think White's struggling because I think he should have exchanged rooks. But then again, it's still going to be a tricky hold, I suspect.
I think it'd be a tricky hold either way. I mean, the engine. I mean, I checked the engine evaluation. It says slightly bad for Black. Normally, when it says slightly bad for Black in an ending like this, it means ultimately it's a draw.
It's a theoretical draw, though. Let's make that point very clear. That doesn't mean it's like.
Understands from a practical perspective, it's hard to hold, and you know, if you're White in this game, you're in Mr. Kunz's shoes, Andre Kunz, then you know you're really going to be there for a long time, even if you hold the game. And
another great point as well, Danny. Planner Hath 973 points ago. Andre's going to be holding this position on increment very shortly.
He's taking too long. Well, he's taking too long
to make poor moves as well. Poor practical moves, I think.
And you know, you need that time for later because you're going to have very critical decisions later. And also,
I think, I'd be surprised if Simon doesn't win.
Gaffing around, just making like random moves which don't really help his position anyway. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very easy to sit here as a commentator and criticise because it's not easy over the board to play this ending as White. But even so, like, you know, I think he just needs to play quicker and say, look, I'm really happy. You know, that confident body language from earlier from Andre has gone. He's now looking very deflated. Simon is looking like really like just like bored.
Yeah, I'm gonna right the wrongs I created just before the time control, basically, when I had you on the ropes in the tough situation, and you know, it wasn't easy. I accept that.
Right, it wasn't easy, but he
messed it up though. Let's be honest.
He didn't quite turn the screw.
Yeah.
And
Imperial Purple make a great point. Playing so slowly already means he's uncomfortable. So it's all sort of roads are building on themselves, aren't they? It's like the reason he's playing so slowly or relatively slowly and not saving time is because he really doesn't really know what to do. And it's the tempo of how he actually makes the moves on the board, Danny. It's like he sort of like plays his moves. He actually physically plays his moves really quickly, as if that's going to save him some sort of time. Well, it's going to save him milliseconds, you know, by playing them very quickly. Like the physical act when he played like Rook C6, he did it in sort of very rushed manner. I mean, I guess he's appreciative that any time is valuably saved here. He doesn't want to like laconically push his Rook to C6, but even so. By the way, people are thinking that if he exchanged rooks, he's not going to hold this, by the way. I think Simon's going to avoid the exchange rooks. I think Simon will sit here now. He's got 25 minutes. I think Simon's going to calculate definitive. Oh, by the way, apparently it's losing already. But I think Simon's going to sit here and calculate out for at least 10 minutes if Rook takes C6 works. And apparently Rook takes C6 does work according to the engines. But it's going to take... But the thing about Simon's going to have to take a good... Unless Simon can see the definitive way to win this as Black with the move Rook takes C6, then he's not going to play it, because once obviously you take the rooks off the board, they can never reappear. And so I think but G4 and Rook takes C6, they're both exchanging rooks, and so I don't see him playing G4, by the way, because that allows the king to be displaced. If Simon exchanges rooks, I'm pretty confident he'll definitely do it with Rook takes C6. He won't do it via G4. Even if G4 we're being told is winning, which I believe, then of course you have to calculate a lot more. Your king has been displaced. You've got to start thinking if White King can get back into the action a little bit.
Big birdie from Connors.
Brilliant. Well, good for you, Danny. So, what do you think you might sing if Simon wins? I think you've got to start. You know, you've got you've got to start. The fat lady's not singing just yet, but she's warming up, mate.
It might
can
be
we say that?
Like, Dina, I love you.
No, Danny, we've been told in no uncertain terms, right, that we cannot continue with this angle.
Yeah,
I mean, we're told literally. I've been warned. You've been warned, right? Look, we've had a little bit of entertainment. I think people should allow us to have a little bit of levity, but enough's enough, and I've got to stop you there, Danny.
The boys' fun is over, right?
Absolutely. So please, you know,
no more comments, right?
I don't think. By the way, I don't think we've sailed too close to win. But before we do, I think we should.
Yeah. I won't make any more. So.
Thank you.
No, I will make a song if.
Yeah, please, yeah. But by the way, but just think about. By the way, is there any suggestions in the chat of songs which if it ends in a draw or songs if it ends in a win? If you want to put your suggestions into the chat. By the way. We will only have the singing once the game is over, so do not feel that by putting in a suggestion you have to. We won't go for the chess now. We'll keep on the chess, but we want to hear a song for a draw and a song for a win, and we'll let Danny decide. Are you some sort of contralto, Danny, or baritone? I don't know what these things are. You've got range though, haven't you?
Not really. No, I'm one of these people who would probably go on X Factor and think that they're a great singer, and in reality.
Thank you very much for the subscription. I think that's in lieu of you singing, by the way.
In reality, you're revealed as not a very good singer. You know. Let me just get my water.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Also, a bit of honey and lemon, Dan, or Danny was saying earlier.
I'll get ready for the final.
Grease those vocal cords in anticipation of the winning song. Do you do Queen, We Are the Champions, Golden Eye, Tina Turner, bit of a James Bond theme there?
Golden Eye.
Eye of the Tiger. Any of these appeal to you?
I think they got to number 1 when it came out. Actually. It was by Survivor. It was
Rocky 3. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The theme tune to Rocky 3, which starred B.A. Baracus as the kind of like rival of Sylvester Stallone. Mr.
Anyway, I said so. I'm going to cut off. I said we stick with the chess. Apparently, let's work out why is Rook takes C6 so obviously winning now. I don't understand why this is so obviously winning now.
I think he's taking his time to calculate.
Yeah, he's definitely I think because we could bring the king this way, and we could sort of like combine threats of H3 with this idea again of E3 and bringing the king in. Apparently, it's definitely winning, taking the rook.
But if you go king D4, I mean, are you necessarily threatening F4? Because then I just go like. Don't I go like bishop d7?
Oh, sorry, I have to go. By the way, I've got to go g4 first because obviously I can't allow this to happen. I can never allow this to happen as white, black rather. I can't allow this to happen.
Yeah. So you go g4 and then maybe you're threatening king d4, f4, f3, and then the pawns are just like an.
And so if white goes king e3, then I think I'm just going h3 again. Yeah, with this exactly the same.
Trying to work this out. Whether it's interesting that I would probably play a practical move like rook d8, but he's trying to base. So what you're saying is now if you go for the exchange, this is the winning line.
Apparently, it's definitely winning. But apparently, it's so winning, in fact, that g4 in the current position wins. But he would never exchange rooks like that because the king is so much further away from d4. I find that
very interesting. Now I think it'd be very easy to get wishy-washy and keep the rooks on. And this is the moment to strike and actually.
Oh, yeah. But so apparently g4 might still be winning at a long depth, but if he's going to exchange rooks, he's definitely calculating rook takes c6. Yeah. By the way, Danny, I've got a prediction. He's going to play rook takes c6. He's going to then play g4. He's then going to play king d4. He's going to win. And I'll be happy because I've got home to go to. And Danny, warm up those vocal cords for the winning song. I'm predicting it. It's going to go. He's going to find it. He's going to spend another 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. Yeah. He's already spent 5 minutes. I said 10 minutes in total at least. I reckon maybe a few more, but I reckon he's obviously calculating out the definitive continuation. And I think he's going to be calculating exactly this. Rook takes rook. Bishop takes rook. He's going to see that you have to play the g4 move first to not have the pawns fixed. And he's then going to see that king e3 is ridiculous. So he's coming in with king d4. Just out of interest, after king f4, king d4, what happens after bishop d7, or just pawns just get too far down the board? Or
but why do you have to go king d4? Why can't you just go f4 and like just push? Why? What? Oh, this is maybe
bishop d7 here, yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's some kind of like king d4, bishop d7. Maybe there's some kind of win with e3 check. And then some kind of I don't know.
So we're saying king d4 here.
Yeah, I mean,
It's still not easy though, is it, Daddy? I mean, after you've still got to calculate exactly bishop d7 here, because if this goes wrong, obviously it's all gone. It's all gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very nervous as sire here because I'll be like,
Well, hold on, I think I've seen it, Daddy. H3.
yeah. Oh, what? And then E3 distractor.
Yeah.
But,
Or just like takes bishop takes f5, and you can't stop both the pawns.
yeah, because your bishop can't go to E4. That's a very good point. And now you go like E4.
Yeah, now E3, yeah.
Now
and one of my pawns is queening because, like you said, Daddy, very importantly, the bishop's had to take on, and he's done it. He's done it. He's going to win this.
Yeah,
I believe he's going to see us now, but I think he's got to be accurate.
This would be amazing.
He's going to play G4 immediately. He's going to do it quickly though, which I'm not sure I'm a fan of. As long as he goes G4, I'm happy. Oh, look at this! Calculated it all out, Daddy. Told you this would happen.
Has he got G4?
Yeah, yes.
The G4 does look very natural though.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Apparently it's definitely winning, by the way.
Yeah.
This is actually quite impressive. There's no shortage of charm with Simon, is there? He's not content with sending me home early for a nice bit of dinner. He has to keep us waiting.
I think that's a bad thing, though. I think you want to be able to close some of these games out a bit easier, right? Because, you know, like what you said earlier, that rook d8, that whole sequence, queen f1 was actually okay, but what you need to do is you need to trade immediately. Like rook d8 was actually the big mistake.
It was a big mistake, yeah.
Rook d8 was a big mistake. And I feel like, yeah, overall, like your long-term survival in these kind of tournaments depends on your ability to put players like this away a little bit quicker.
Well, also you do actually save quite a lot of energy as well, don't you?
You save
That's
a lot
an
of
issue.
energy, and you know, look at someone like Ivanchuk, right? He just marmalises players like this. Why does he marmalise players like this? A, because he calculates very well, doesn't make any big mistakes, and secondly, because he's just his opening preparation is very good. You know, I was thinking like, you know, earlier, what makes Ivanchuk, you know, a strong player? I think part of the reason is he's just very. He just plays in a simple way, a simple chess, simple technical chess, right? He picks people off with simple technical chess, makes very few mistakes. But you know,
White's punch king e3. Okay, I mean he's been losing anyway, so
that's just running into f4 with tempo, right?
Well, I mean, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Simon will play f4 fairly quickly. It's still some survival chances maybe that he could.
Really? I mean, I was everything apparently according to like what we've been told in the chat. The engine was saying it's losing anyway, so I'm really going to stop short of criticising a certain move at this point.
I think one winning method would just be I thought sort of. Because after f4, king f2, right? You just want to go king d2 or no? He's gone h3 immediately. Wow, that's insane.
What?
What is he doing?
He's got h3 here. Oh, that might just win as well, Danny. Danny, this just wins as well. That just wins though, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I still don't like the way he's played it so quickly. He must have calculated this all earlier.
No, it just wins, doesn't it? Oh, hold on. Can he even go?
No, but I
don't think this is unnecessary because you can go G3 here, Daddy.
Yeah, but you wouldn't do that. No. No, but I think the point is if you take, it's similar to that line we were looking at earlier.
By the way, we've got the wrong move, we're being told. He actually played G3 immediately, which looks even more strange to me, but maybe. I think his idea is to go H3 and F4 or something. It's like F4 and H3, this must be alright. Yeah?
I'm worried about that move, actually.
Why? No, this is fine, isn't it?
Is it? I just don't like that move.
It doesn't look. I'm sure I feel it's probably winning, but it doesn't look like. Can we have confirmation of that in the chat? It doesn't look like the way I'd have done it. Put it that way, Danny.
But I'll be honest. There is a possible plan of. Yeah, you're right. Maybe F4 H3 is on the cards, but you'd have to be very sure that that's completely winning immediately.
Of course, I agree. Yeah.
Because
it's definitely still winning though, Danny. So we're being told, come. Yeah, Simon's playing it the way.
Visually, it looks winning, right?
If you see a way to, Dan, isn't it not true though? If you see a way to definitely, if you're in your mind, you see a way to definitely win, you shouldn't need to worry about if there's a quicker or alternative way to win. Play what you see.
Exactly, but I think there's also maybe a plan to go in F4 and then F3 check and then H3 is probably also winning because.
Yeah, because the king, this pawn, the bishop's not going to be able to get back. This is going to be stuck to protecting.
And
yeah.
you know, you're really flapping around. And if you go back to king, I go like e3, and then I'm going to.
I tried bishop d7, which I'm not sure. So now, but now you might be committed to this h3 plan straight away, yeah?
May well be committed to h3, but yeah.
I don't know. Is that right?
I mean,
I don't know.
G3 is very committal. G3 is very committal, right? I mean,
is h3 winning? I'm starting to doubt myself. I'm starting to doubt. I think it is.
F4, F3 is a potential plan.
Is F4 winning here? I think that's one of the questions. I think it's. I don't think this is a good move.
He's gone H3. He's very confidently.
Oh, he's played. So I think F4 is wrong, by the way, because this bishop now stops H3. Yeah, you can't allow that.
Yeah.
So he's calculated this all out, and I think he's calculated it out brilliantly. He's played H3. G takes H3, and
F4.
Obviously, the rest of the moves just flow. F4, King E2. I say they all flow.
Oh, maybe you just go F3, king, and then G2, and then king goes back, and then you go king F4, and then you go E3.
Oh, you're actually mating as well. This is quite. Should we just show this on the board?
Yeah, you go E3 and king G1. Yeah, he's going to go like. He's just.
Oh, that's quite nice. You might get mate on the board. Yeah.
It's very impressive that he saw all this earlier.
Well, he obviously saw this from. He obviously saw this from when he played Rook takes C6. Clearly, I said he would though, Danny, didn't I?
He must have seen ideas like this, right?
He must have seen it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I said he would see this, didn't I?
No, he's a very good calculator, so
King F1, and now apparently you had G2. This looks pretty natural now. This idea, we're actually going to potentially get checkmate, aren't we? You know.
Funnily enough, I had a game like this in the British Blitz Championships. I lost on time where I was black, and it was similar kind of setup where I could get the king to G3, but I somehow missed the idea. And I was actually I wasn't even a piece down. I was like, I just had those kind of pawns, and I was just winning easily. But somehow I ballsed it up and drew. Sorry, I lost on time. Yeah, so it was like a total disaster of a tournament. That was. I lost to 12-year-old Freddie Gordon in the first round when I was the top seed. So you know things are going to go badly when you lose to, you know, like one of the bottom seeds. But it's obviously very.
Oh, he has played E3, by the way, just to demonstrate his. Apparently that's winning as well, but he has played E3 just to not worry about. I don't know why he didn't go G2, but once again, it's irrelevant. All roads lead to Rome. And this E3
just like E2, king goes to E1, G2, or G2.
Oh, right, yeah.
King goes to G1, E2, so he will win.
So let's just put it on the board. So what Danny's saying is the pawn goes here, the king goes here, the pawn goes here, the king has to stop this pawn from queening, but then you sacrifice one pawn and the other pawn makes a queen.
What Simon should do now is put on his jacket, put on his...
Stop going on about jackets going on and off, Daddy, please. We've got to be careful.
Put on his watch, and then, you know, that's what the old Kasparov trick was. Put on his watch, look like, you know, you're ready to, like, leave, and then, you know...
Roll up the sleeves, yeah? Is that the other one he did?
Is that... sleeves, and...
Let's go to the live position with E3.
The guy's moved his bishop.
Bishop B5.
Yeah, but... It
now G2 check on a king F4 just to rub swords the wounds.
Every move.
Everything wins, yeah, okay, everything. So Danny, just to let you know, thank you to everyone who's joined us. I'm not ending the stream anytime soon because how do you think we can close this show? Well, I know how we're going to close this show. The question is, with what are we going to close the show?
Yeah, I feel like I've learned something here because this ending, I didn't realise was winning. With a 4 against the 1, it's obviously practically difficult to hold, but it's interesting to side very.
Well, I think it was only winning in that specific kind of like because White took too long to exchange the rooks.
Yeah, but it was practically very tough to hold. You know,
it's gone H4 just to like it's. By the way, the guy's played H4 twice in a game against Simon.
I think he's going to allow himself to get mated G2 and then King G. Well, he'd probably resign now. I think he's going to resign now.
No, he's going to play King G1. I think he's going to get mated, isn't he? He's got some style, this guy.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
He's going to go H5, surely.
King G3.
And he's going to go H5, surely.
No, I think he resigns now. Should we have a little
He's played H4 twice in one... Danny, you know he's played H4 twice in one game against the GingerGM?
No, I reckon he's going to resign, yeah.
He has resigned, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Danny, you're not biting with my point that he's played H4 twice against the GingerGM in one game.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't think that would be in Simon's best game collection when he...
I tend to agree with you.
But having said that, it's still impressive how he got the job done, how he didn't completely lose... It would be very easy to completely lose composure once he went into that ending. and he was winning earlier. But so to me, it's very impressive how confidently he won that. There were a few moments where he really impressed me in that game. How he found Bishop takes A4, you know, and how he won the end of the end. But there was a couple.
Well, Danny, let me just put those couple of points on the board. So earlier on in the game here, we were in a very complex situation, and I can tell you that Simon actually thought for exactly 34, according to feed, 30, excuse me, that's not my fault, that's just updating. On the rare occasion that technical glitch was just putting the result on the board. Simon found himself in this position after White's 16th move. White had just played the very interesting pawn to E5. A lot of dynamic possibilities in this game. And Danny and I, sorry, Danny specifically, were talking about many options for black here. Options such as knight takes E3, maybe, even pawn takes E5, maybe some sort of knight H7 at some point. And Simon, after 34 minutes thought, played by far and away the best move. Danny, talking about this, if you just joined us, Simon played what, as Danny said earlier, looks like a counterintuitive move, exchanging off the sort of very nice light square bishop for a knight on A4, which apparently was a very good idea.
Yeah, I think that was a good move. And then we said afterwards that probably the best move was D takes E5, but knight 7 was fine. And knight 7 though was leading to a very sharp position, you know.
So apparently he should have played D takes E5 here. He actually went knight H7 first. White went bishop B3. He went knight takes G5, H takes G5, and he managed not to avoid what could have been a huge banana skin, and I certainly wouldn't have avoided it. Had he now played D takes E5, which looks, for all intents and purposes, pretty good, he could have been hit by this brilliant tactical stroke. Bishop takes F7 check, trying to distract the rook from defending the queen on D8. It looks temporarily as if black can run his king or take the bishop with his king, but then there's this beautiful move by white, queen to E2, opening up the attack of the rook to the queen on D8, and simultaneously putting the queen in a square where it's going to put some crazy pressure on the black king. The line continued just to show you how it can go even worse for black. It wouldn't have happened like this, but queen C4 check. The only way to seriously survive is to play queen E6, and you get hit by rook to D7 check, taking advantage of the queen on E6 being pinned. The king would have to lose contact with the queen, and black would be utterly, completely lost.
Very easy. I was actually saying to you earlier that I actually blundered the bishop takes F7 tactic earlier in the year. It's very easy to overlook, but it's actually interesting. I think the bishop takes F7 tactic in my game was actually easier to see. I'm not totally convinced this guy would have found bishop takes F7 if Simon had blundered D takes E5, because it's not certain that you find it, right? But yeah, you would not want to. It's definitely a loss of control to even allow that. It's a very bad mistake to even allow it. So it'd be interesting to know. I want to know, like, I want you to find out, for me personally, if Simon actually saw this bishop takes F7 tactic, or whether he just went queen E7 because he thought it was the best move.
I'll ask him that, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very interested to know, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not certain that I would have seen bishop takes F7 at all. It looks like quite a tough move.
And we'll just continue, have a little review, Danny. You don't have to leave in the next 2 minutes, do you, or 5 minutes? We're brilliant, we'll carry on.
Get rid of me, mate. I'm here for the...
Well, no, brilliant. I'm loving it, Danny. And so what happened after this was Simon went, sorry, forgive me, that was my fault on this occasion. Simon avoided this banana skin of D takes E5, which would have potentially led to some really problematical situations had White spotted the follow-up. Queen E7, and then White was in a very tricky spot here, but played a very hard to fathom move. Danny, when you went for your breaks, I said, if I was White here, if he settled on this crazily poor move, bishop G1, I said, if I would exhaust so much more time, if I had to play bishop G1, if bishop E1 was the best move, or one of the best moves, I'd be giving up, not giving up, I'd be desperately concerned about my chances. Bishop G1 was far and away not the best move. It was one of the possible moves, but it would take me, I'd have to take all my time on the clock before playing it.
I think this is one of the things I noticed when I play against sort of like players of this kind of rating, is that at some point they will throw in what looks to be a very strange move, a very bad move. You know, there's a reason they're the rated they are for whatever reason. You know, I talked about World Championship players earlier. There's no World Championship player in history that would play Bishop G1 here. They just would not play it. It's just not a move that would even feature on their radar.
You just can't countenance this. You know, there must be. You look at this decision, and even I would say, Danny, there must be something else. There is no way in God's good earth. I mean, I understand it's done to preserve the dark squared bishop. Of course, we understand why he did it. But I would have to say to myself, if my position, I can't be playing. I'm sorry, I'm not playing Bishop G1. I'm just sorry, I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it.
It just looks like a very strange move. It just looks anti-positional, and generally speaking, anti-positional moves do not work out well for us. So, you know, it just looks like a strange move. And the problem is Simon did not call his bluff, because after he took on E5 and White went F5, he should have, of course, taken the pawn.
So let's continue. So Simon did play the best response, and White's other idea behind Bishop. By the way, White's other idea behind Bishop G1. I should say this in fairness, was not just to preserve his bishop, but was to wheel out, which he did, this idea of F5. And it turns out this is only visual at best for a couple of reasons. As Danny just pointed out, Simon could have easily just called his bluff with G takes F5. If I don't think this would happen, but G6 unfortunately loses on the spot to Bishop H6. Another reason why removing the bishop from the E3 square may have been a bad idea, but simply put, it was a bad idea because of the anti-positional nature of it. Danny pointing out as well, and points out in the chat, that Rook takes H5, which is much better move than G6, because you might have ideas of G6 because the H6 square is covered. Danny just said, came back to the board, just went, I'll just play Rook FD8, give myself the F8 square, and apparently Black has a very, very healthy advantage here.
Yeah, because he kind of did something similar in the game, but he ended up losing a piece to get the same kind of position, right? So you could play this same kind of position that he played in the game, but without losing a piece, which obviously
exactly
is
a
version.
So what happened here was that after F5, Simon did not take on F5, which comfortably is the best move.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
Somebody who's a materialistic player like Korchnoi was considered to be a materialistic player would have just taken on F5 without even thinking and said, look, this is rubbish. I'll take my pawn, I'll take your pawn, I'm a cynical player. I'll take your pawn, win the game.
Yeah, just call your bluff, basically. Just say, look, we've got not just your bluff, it is call your bluff, because I'm not saying it's a bluff, maybe it's what White, maybe his opponent, Andre, thought this was his best way or saw some more.
So if I'm being critical of Simon, which
absolutely.
I am all the time because I'm very jealous of the guy, but no, I'm only kidding. But the point is that, you know, he isn't a very materialistic player, and maybe sometimes it's better if he was. You know, it would be better for him if he was a more materialistic player, right? Because a more materialistic player here would just take on F5 every time. I mean, Rook D8 was just. I think it was a nervy move. Actually, I think it was a nervy move. I think you pointed out that it's entirely possible that he simply missed this F6 reply.
I think he did. I mean, I might ask him that as well, but I don't. Obviously, he has. Well, I'm not going to do that this evening. I'm sure he's normally very open-minded about responding anyway.
Yeah, I think he thought that he could just get a better version. You could just go Rook D8, then take, and then you don't even have to worry about whether White's.
Let's just put that on the board. So, for example, he was looking at this thinking, okay, for example, Queen E2, and then I'll just, well, also, hold on. Yeah. In fact, hold on, this G pawn's hanging. So
yeah, maybe that's what he was intending, like a much simpler win, right? Yeah, very good.
And maybe because I initially, Daddy, I completely overlooked I overlooked this as well. I thought after F6, I just thought, well, I'll just take your queen, and then you take my queen. I'll take you intermezzo with check, and I'll just go Rook E8. And then, but you pointed out suddenly the bishop from G1. This crazily poor move. This poor move. Yeah. Suddenly it comes into the game, dives into the position with Bishop C5, protects E7, and then it suddenly gets incredibly messy.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some line with Rook E7 and Knight F2.
Because Danny pointing out that Bishop A4 is the big threat for White.
Yeah, so you've got this move like Rook E7 and then Knight F2, but the problem is at the end there's like Bishop D8 and then Hoover A5, and it just starts getting very, very unclear, right?
Very unclear. I mean, if anything, I'd prefer to be White here, by the way. I'd play Bishop D8, Danny, your suggestion, and start just going after these pawns. Because if I can, it's very hard to see how I can hold this all together, and I'm very quickly going to have a4 in. Even if you could sort of solidify with c5 and bishop f8, I've got a4, and then I could obviously take back my b pawn if you go on pawn. I've got a passed a pawn, 2 bishops on the board, and what is this doing over here?
I mean, the 2 bishops always kind of is some kind of insurance against losing, and I feel like here, I totally agree with you. If anyone's going to win this now, it'd be white. I mean, it's just gone wrong. So
thanks very much quickly to anyone who joins us. Simon will not be joining us. He's obviously had a long day. We don't have a live sort of like interview link with him. For anyone who has joined us and is leaving, we totally understand that. Thank you for sticking with us. Quite why you're leaving us when the highlight of the whole stream is yet to come, I don't know. Really don't know. I mean, obviously they don't know what's Danny. They've obviously got no idea. By the way, how's Connor's getting on in the golf?
He's 3 shots clear, but it's
brilliant. Well, best of luck, Danny. Hope he wins you.
Yeah,
well, you've done it, Danny. You know, karma. You know, you've been a great supporter of this stream and the people. Yeah, if you have to leave,
everybody cross your fingers
karma.
for Corey Codders.
Anyway, I think they're all giving you the love and support. Anyway, people must not know. By the way, if you don't know what's coming up next, we are going to end the show shortly or fairly soon. Simon managed to win with another fantastic piece of music, singing, and a little bit of dancing maybe from Grandmaster, a man of many talents, Daniel Gormally. Moving back to the game, so this was a possibility which could have very much gone wrong. In fairness to Simon, and I believe he did miss this, after White played f6, he did play, and I don't think this was his idea, but we'll find out. Knight takes f6, pawn takes f6, queen takes f6, and this is certainly still a very good position for Black, certainly an incredibly dangerous position from White's side. The reason being, as Danny points out, this is like kind of Black's key idea coming in.
But also the computer actually quite likes Black here, so it's entirely possible that Simon just went for this and he maybe didn't blunder f6, so he just thought that this position is just good for Black, because the computer does still prefer Black here. It still thinks that Black
is all right.
Is doing very, very well indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on a few moves. It went Queen e1, which apparently is not great. e4 came in, c3, and they were both very short of time already. Thank you very much for the raid, Murazabov.
Yeah.
They're both very short of time already. The 3 raiders are joining us at the right time. GM Grandmaster Danny Gormally will sing shortly. We just close out the game first. It started to get very messy here, Danny, didn't it? I mean, we understand why, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's just practically very, very hard for White to hold, because, you know, this is one of the problems with Bishop G1 earlier. You're not really a piece up it because your Rook on H1 is not playing in the game, right? So effectively you are you're exchanged down for the time being until you can somehow activate that bishop. But I think Simon did miss. I mean,
so we move on to 3 moves. Rook takes d1, king takes d1. So far, so good. He didn't really put any feet wrong. Queen c6 was pretty good.
I think instead of Queen c6, it says Rook d8 was very strong. I think here.
Oh, here is that right?
Yeah, Rook d8.
I think you've got some.
I think it was like in Rook d8 here. Maybe there's some idea of going Rook d3 like at some point, right? Because I was wondering this in the game whether you could even give out the exchange after like Bishop d4. No, King c2, Rook d3, Bishop d4, and just give out the exchange. But that's probably asking too much. But that would be an amusing variation, right? Just to suddenly play a Rook down.
But, right, so just say that again. That's quite interesting. Go on, what's they saying? Bishop d4, yeah?
Let's say you go King c2 here.
Oh, King c2 straight away. Not Bishop d4 first. Don't want to do that?
Bishop d4, c5 is just... No, but maybe Rook f1, maybe, but I don't know, yeah.
It's still pretty... It's getting pretty complicated, isn't it, still, with this? It shows to show...
I'm sure the computer... I don't know if it's Rook d8 here, but the computer around about here just says Black's completely winning.
Okay. Well, that doesn't surprise me, but sorry from a practical point of view as well.
Yeah, but... Queen c6 wasn't the best. Okay,
Queen c6 wasn't the best, and because White then finally found some, you know, some good moves after sort of not making up for his Bishop g1. But he played this very nice sort of defensive move, at least creating some difficulties for Simon, activating this Rook.
Rook was a really good move, yeah.
It was certainly a very practical move, defending c3, and most notably after Simon played a4, which looks right. Bishop c2, and there was a lot of debate here what Simon played next is understandable entirely, but I think Simon sort of overestimated or underestimated any counterplay by White here with his next move.
I'll be honest, I wouldn't be too critical of either player.
Okay, F5. I thought it was a pretty good move, by the way.
The computer obviously would mangle White from here, right?
So what you're saying is it wouldn't even bother to play F5, yeah?
It's very easy to say, look, this wins when you've got a computer. But from a human perspective, it's not that easy to break White down completely, right? That's
Simon did win in the end, by the way. Onto the chat.
Sorry?
Just saying to the chat, Simon did win in the end, just to say. Patience is a virtue. Let's carry on. So Simon went F5, and they were both down to like a couple of minutes here at the most. They were both, or in that region. White went Queen E3, which apparently was quite a good move. And Danny, I think you made an absolutely excellent point here of Simon's next move. And I'd love it for people who are just joining us, because your knowledge and understanding, I'd love you to repeat what you said here. So White was down to like literally a couple of minutes at most, maybe 1 minute from memory. 50 seconds, I believe, if my stream is correct.
Well, it's funny because I checked this move, and the two top moves are the move that Simon played, which is the top move, which is Queen D5, and the move.
So this is what Simon played.
And the move I suggested, Queen C4. But I thought from a practical perspective, Queen C4 might have been even better, because whereas Queen D5 is a very forcing move and kind of makes a check, so therefore forces White to come up with an immediate response. It's not so clear what you do after Queen C4, hitting the pawn on A2, right? Same idea, you're just going to hit the pawn, but also you're threatening Queen F1. So I would have been very tempted in the game to actually play. I didn't even see Queen D. I mean, mainly I suggested Queen C4 because I didn't even see Queen D5.
Love your honesty, Danny, as ever.
But Queen C4 I would have played, because then, yeah, I mean, how does White respond? Because,
but you did see, obviously, you saw at least, but you saw your ideas to Queen C4, and Queen C4 obviously, as you've confirmed, is a very strong move. Hitting A2, and now White's from again, with White being under a minute on the clock, he's now got to really start concerning himself with this. You know, if he starts making a bad move, he could just lose on the spot to Queen F1, couldn't he? I mean, he could just blunder this or just lose. Absolutely. This could crush through.
Absolutely. I mean, exactly. And I'll be honest with you. I think if he played Queen C4, the game would have been over a lot quicker than it was.
And I might have gone to dinner again. Now, that's third night running, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the guy would have collapsed very quickly. But at least after Queen, because maybe your best move is. Well, in fact, you can't even go. Well, you could go.
What, Danny? But maybe your best move is Queen D2.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But I would play Queen D2 here. I mean,
maybe I hit up another pawn, because I can go Queen F1, Bishop D4. Sorry, Queen E1. So Queen D2, Queen F1, Queen E1, and then Queen G2 is another pawn that I could.
Oh, yeah, so see, that could be.
Oh, but then you have Rook G3. So maybe I'll just go.
I've got to be careful for that.
But I can go Rook D8 here, right? And then when you go Bishop D4, I go to the same kind of ending, but even more pawns. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, possibly. But again, I think the point was that, you know, genuine respect to honesty, you didn't see Queen D5 winning A2. Yeah, but also, it is still a forcing move, you know.
Also, as you say, it's not so clear. It might well be that Queen D2 is the best move. It's not so clear that White.
No, you're not. I can't believe that's going to be really hard to play against Queen C4. Even if I don't even know if it is the best move.
But after Queen D5, it's pretty clear that he's going to go Queen D2.
Totally agree, Danny.
So, totally agree. From a practical point of view, I would have gone Queen C4 anyway. Like, even if I'd seen Queen D5, I might have been very tempted to just go Queen C4 anyway, right?
I think that's your point. I mean, the point is, you're saying, summing it up in a nutshell, when your opponent's under 1 minute, even with increment, you don't want to necessarily give them, even, you know, if you've got a choice, give them the difficult decisions, keep them guessing, keep them guessing themselves about what the best move is. And if you give them a forcing decision like a check, they know that the options are incredibly limited. It's kind of like, do I move the king sideways, or do I play Queen D2? And I'm definitely going to play Queen D2. I'm probably anyway. So, but anyway, keep them.
He might well have lost on time trying to find a response to Queen D4.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he's now got to worry about this. He's got to worry about this. He's got to worry about this. He's got so many things to worry about in this situation. He might even have to worry about keeping hold of the C3 pawn, of course, as well.
Yeah,
he's got so many things to worry about. So that was an interesting point in the game. Simon went with which we understand would have transposed all things being equal with Queen takes A2. Apparently this is quite alright, Bishop c5, rook b8 looked good, and all of a sudden after rook g3, this rook's got a bit active. It starts to, it starts to got very tricky here. We were on move 33. Simon was getting low on clock. He was getting towards his 5 minutes, I believe.
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't in a comfortable situation, and he had to start responding to this. And he played queen c4, which apparently is pretty good. But then he got.
Could I just? I think Simon did hold his nerve well here, because I know he kind of messed it up, but I still think it's very, very difficult situation. It's like, your opponent is really struggling hard with this rook g3, and it'd be very easy to like mess it up completely. So I think he did keep control to a certain extent. Queen c4 was a good move. I like queen c4.
Bishop d4, and then c5. I don't know if that is correct.
c5 was correct, but he just didn't believe in his idea. And when c5 was still winning, right? c5,
yeah,
and bishop g7, and queen f1. Absolutely correct move, queen f1, and this where he went wrong, because apparently after queen e1 you just trade.
And it's very important, I guess, to. And that's definitely. Is it really because this rook's so badly placed?
Yeah, I think you just trade and then you take on g7.
So you take on g7. Bishop takes a4.
Yeah, but apparently.
So is the issue this rook is horrific?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's very easy. It's almost trapped, right?
Yeah, it's very hard to get this rook back into the game anytime soon. And by the time you've got it back in the game, these pawns are just like, I guess, coming right down your throat, aren't they?
You could go king f6 with a threat of, well, maybe f4 or something.
Well, maybe just go h4 here and then g5, and if the rook goes to e3, we all our pawn moves pretty much are going to come with tempo.
Yeah, I mean, this would have been a much better version of what he got.
Yeah, a much better version of what he got. Also. And we did get a little bit of criticism in the chat for this, but I'll stand by this one, because we were shouting it from the rooftops, both of us. What happened in the game was a critical moment. So queen f1 was what Simon played, queen e1, and then I think he completely overlooked this, because he kind of stuck a check in, almost thinking did he overlook this? Because there's no move other than bishop d4 here, is there?
Yeah, I'm not convinced he did overlook it. I think he saw it, but maybe he just misevaluated it.
Okay, maybe just. Yeah.
I'm really shocked at why he didn't take on g6.
Anyway, and we screamed this from the rooftop, Danny. I appreciate. Yeah. It's much easier in the cold light day in hindsight. The game continued. Bishop d4, queen takes e1 check, king takes e1. Simon took on d4, and very quickly. And we appreciate White had like a minute or so on his clock, so he had to make a quick decision. We understand why. He did this. He was scared of these couple of advanced pawns coming at him. The problem was, as we saw in the game, leaving black with four connected pawns. Four connected pawns. Sorry, not passed pawns. Four connected pawns became very tricky very quickly for him. And we were shocked that he didn't just bite on g6.
Can't have his cake and eat it, like you say. Like, the best case scenario, you get in. He had connected pass pawns in the game anyway, so maybe he just thought, I'd rather delay the inevitable. I'd rather delay the loss, and that's why he played. So
what he actually played in this position was pawn takes d4, but he also expected Simon just to recapture.
No, after rook g6, king f7, there's also rook g5 winning another pawn, by the way.
So maybe he expected Simon to just recapture on d4 as well. But it was, by the way, we're on move 39 here. We should point out both players were down to less than a minute, effectively just playing on increment. In fact, White did go back down to 7 seconds during these sort of moves. So we should point out this was not just a time pressure situation, a stressful situation, a nervous situation for both the players. So even if we are being critical, we don't mean to be overly critical. It's just the fact that both Danny and I absolutely fully expected rook takes g6 here. We sort of deal with the consequences later, Danny, wouldn't we? Our instinct was just rook takes g6, wasn't it?
Well, the point is, after rook g6, king f7, you can actually win another pawn by going rook g5, which hits f5 at h5, which we didn't see earlier in the commentary.
Correct. We did. So we're not saying we've played this rook takes g6 an instinct.
I certainly didn't go rook a6, which is probably also not a bad move, but the rook g5, king f6, rook h5.
Yeah.
You're starting
because if black ever takes here, these pawns are so much easier to stop with a bishop and a rook when they're disconnected. There's certainly a lot less Well, also, by the way, white could just play bishop takes a4. Sorry, of course.
Yeah. Maybe you would be afraid of a3 there instead of taking on c3. But the point is, the rook could always come across.
Yeah, you can always go rook to h6 and then maybe come over here. It's still not absolutely set in stone, is it? But also, I think the other idea, I think it looks very scary. I think maybe he rejected it because I was pretty confident rook a6 was a good idea. I accept that d3 could have happened. And I think that it's still, by the way, the chat was giving us some tricky lines. Still, it's not absolutely white's out the woods yet. But it still felt that what happened in the game was not a hard stretch to consider what happened in the game, you know?
Yeah, no.
In terms of leaving these 4 pawns together, you know. Also in this position, white does also have a c pawn, which exists as well. So, you know, white after this, it's still pretty. It can be tricky for white here, but he does have at least he's only 2 pawns down, and you never know. This pawn might have some value.
Scared of these connected pass pawns, but yeah, I think it's important to say that, you know, what are the skills of being a, like, you know, strong player, whatever. He's having the ability to make automatic decisions, and it seems to me that rook takes g6 was a move you have to play. You know, whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. You just have to play it because
absolutely, we better leave it. Yeah, sorry.
You have to punish your opponent's mistakes, you know, and he didn't do that. I mean, white didn't do that. He kind of let Simon off the hook.
And what happened was, even though what he played was theoretically drawn, and we're very confident it was so much harder. You know, in that position there, if he'd done what we're talking about, he just needed to navigate a couple more moves. In the game, he kind of needed to navigate the whole game, and he failed to do that quite comfortably. Understand, it's still tricky. Let's see what happened in the game. So he took here. Simon immediately jumped on the chance of defending his g6 pawn. There was no way he was going to allow that to be taken at any time again. And it already got the feeling here that white spent a long time with king e2. Yes, okay, it was first move after time patrol, so he might have been outside having a little walk around. But then very quickly, he didn't seem to know which to take on, and he just allowed the pawns. He played this incredibly crazy move, rook h3, which is just passive. He should have gone rook c3 to c6. Danny pointing out these ideas as well. The loss of these 2 tempos was critical in going from a theoretically drawn position. Yeah. Well, even if they just don't achieve it. You just allowed black 2 free moves, haven't you? Yeah, it may or may not change the ultimate evaluation, but it did.
Even if he'd gone for that exchange earlier, I think he still would have lost because
so do I, Danny.
Practically,
it's very hard, by the way.
A computer might defend it, but from a human perspective.
Okay, but let's end on a high note for Simon. In this position, white played rook to c6, and Danny, you were pointing out this is your second highlight of the game for Simon.
Yeah, I was really impressed about the fact that he confidently calculated this. And I would have been very unsure. I'd have been very nervous about the situation. And he very confidently calculated rook takes c6 to be winning because he'd obviously been thinking about these lines earlier.
And we have been confirmed by engine analysis that this absolutely is winning. He calculated rook takes c6. He thought, I'll tell you how long he thought for that move for, Danny, if you're interested. Sure. He thought for 7 minutes and 40 seconds with about 25 minutes on his clock. So he had still plenty of time left. So 7 minutes and 40 seconds, basically it took him to be absolutely convinced that this was without a doubt winning for black, and it was.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I mean, it's not a game that white can realistically hold now. It's just a pawns. It's very simple to play as well.
And I will just show you how the game concluded. G4, King E3, G3. There are more than one way to win, by the way. It's very much Andy Britt. Very welcome. Thanks for joining us. Bishop G7, and now the pawns are just too strong. And these 3 connected passed pawns supported by the king. The bishop on its own, and with the king's help, even with the king's help, helpless to stop the pawns. G2, King G1, King G3, and it is, I believe, for checkmate next move, F2 coming in. But the key point being, as Danny pointed out, in this moment, after white sort of like bit the bullet and wanted to exchange rooks, Simon brilliantly calculated out that rook takes c6 was winning by force. There was no way that white could defend from this point on, even if he'd had the help of a top engine.
That's right, yeah. I mean, it's just like basically But I mean, I have the same problems myself closing out one positions and one games, and you know, it's so hard to win one positions. But I do think sometimes you do need to be maybe more consistent, and maybe more ruthless and more methodical when you have that winning position. Just take on E1, just be more decisive. And I've seen a couple of, you know, decisions in his last couple of games. Simon's shown this indecisiveness. You know, like I said, against that Gale player, when he could have just traded on, he went to bishop h5 to trade the bishops, then he didn't trade the bishops. Indecisiveness is a bit of a disease of a chess player, because when you're lacking a little bit of confidence, it's very easy to get indecisive. And I've experienced that myself a lot lately. And
thanks very much to everyone who's joining us. Thank you for keeping us in check, by the way. Just to those who might know, keeping our excesses in check, Danny, just to...
Yeah. They probably been reported to several... Probably on the Daily Mail website, two chess experts...
Well, one chess expert plus his cohort.
in shocking sexist rants or something like that.
Yeah, disgusting. I hope we weren't too much. We certainly didn't mean to offend, obviously,
Yeah,
of
we're
course.
only-
But even so, we appreciate being kept in check,
think
and that's what it's all about. Thanks very much. By the way, Danny, thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've enjoyed every minute of your insights. I've enjoyed the banter, and what I've enjoyed most of all, I think you know what I'm going to say next.
Right. The singing?
Absolutely.
Is there any more songs for me to sing?
Well, absolutely. We want you to. We thought you decided. Thank you very much, everyone.
Oh,
I thought you were good. We're going to close the show. Thank you very much, Danny. We're going to close the show.
Yeah.
Danny, with Dina's choice. How about that?
I thought you said Dina's choice.
Danny, we've moved on from this now. Please, it's been a long day. Now stop it. All right. By the way, that game looks like it's finished in the background. So hopefully, or congratulations to Dina if she won. Continue her fine, strong effort. Danny, why don't you close us out with the song? Good night to everyone. Here we go.
Okay. Oh, Samurai just missed a putt. That's big, because that means Connors is now 3 shots clear again.
Well, good luck with that as well, by the way. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined us. Just before you leave, don't forget, there is a massive sale going on at GingerGM, 50% off everything. Enough of that, because that's boring to me, even though there's some fantastic products there. Help your chest out. Good stuff by Danny. Over to you, sir.
Okay, I do Roy Orbison, right? The candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes to my room every night, sprinkles silver stardust, and he whispers, "Go to sleep, everything is alright." I close my eyes, and I drift away into the magic night. I softly say a silent prayer, like dreamers do. Then I fall asleep to dream my dreams of you. In dreams I walk with you. In dreams I talk to you. In dreams you're mine. All of the time we're together. In dreams, and just before the dawn, I awake to find you're gone. I can't help it if I cry. I remember when you said goodbye, and the fact that all these things could only happen in my dreams, only in dreams, beautiful dreams.
Danny, brilliant. Thank you very much. Just to let everyone know, do stick around. I'm just going to raid a slightly random channel. I always like the idea, the reason, if I ask people for suggestions, thank you very much, they will give me some obvious suggestions, and I'm just going to raid someone who's got not very many viewers, don't know who they are, but I always like the idea of raiding people to multiply their viewership by loads. So thanks very much, everyone. Catch you soon.
Yeah.
We're still live, Danny, just before we raid. I just want to see what this guy's reaction is to a bit of a raid coming in.
Oh, nice.
Stick around, people, for a little bit. Just give him some help. Give him some love. Chess streamer.